Hello and welcome to the next MCU panel discussion and review. I am Connor and I am joined by Anthony and Callum.
All right.
Hey lads.
And this is quite a big one because not only is this in our MCU review marathon, this is the next installment in it and will be the last one for a while, but it's also the finale of our Spider-Man film marathon as well. So two of our series that we've been doing culminate in this film. So quite a big one, I would say. Patreon.com/Genesis Avengers Army. If you'd like to contribute to the channel, we have multiple tiers where you can get stuff like early access, exclusive access, and requesting videos for us to do. Twitter.com/GAndrozani if you'd like to get in contact with us or check out the banter that's been going on. I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm going to open up my notes because I actually need to look at them. Yeah. Yep. Cool. Right. So, initial thoughts. 2 minutes. Does one of you particularly want to go first, or do you want to flip a coin?
I don't mind.
I can flip a coin.
Yeah.
All right, you can call it, Anthony.
I'm going with tails.
It's tails, so you can
Wow.
go first.
So you've won both flips
Yeah.
that we've done.
Nice. Yeah. As you're all aware, I assume, or I hope so, Spider-Man Far From Home is the next MCU film directly after Endgame. So it's kind of got a lot to beat in terms of, being a good film. I was genuinely surprised watching this film, and I'll leave my surprisal, whether it was positive or negative, further on in this video.
More mysterious. Pardon the pun. But
Sorry, I've now muted my mobile phone.
good. Okay, Callum.
Right. God, I don't know where to start. But yes, as Anthony said, this is post-Endgame, first film post-Endgame, and is the conclusion of Phase 3. So this is, like you said, a very big film to be ending off probably the biggest phase, I think, in the MCU. I think that's not that hard to debate because they're in two biggest films, Infinity War and Endgame. But for Far From Home, which is also a sequel to Homecoming, I had quite mixed feelings on the rewatch of Homecoming, and I was worried, quite vocally on Twitter, I was worried about liking this film. And while I do really, really like this film, and I do prefer it to Homecoming, there are problems that I have, not specifically about this film, but the MCU incarnation of Spider-Man. I've had problems that I've started to develop, and I don't think it's uncommon for a few people to think them, but majority seem to really, really love this film. I've heard a few people say that this is now their favorite Spider-Man film, and that's fine. But for me, we'll be obviously going in detail of it. While I think this is a really good film, it's really good. It's one of the more positive MCU films, I think. There are problems I have with the incarnation of this version of Spider-Man more so than the film itself, but still a very good film, good villain, very well acted from all fronts. Just a few problems that I have that we will go into detail in this review.
All right. So, my thoughts are actually quite similar in some ways. I think this is a very fun, entertaining film that has a lot of highlights, and it is very enjoyable. I had a great time watching it in the theaters, but thinking about it in the last few days, I re-listened to our reviews of Spider-Man 1 and 2, and I've sort of come to realize by comparison that I do think that Far From Home is a good film, but whether or not I think it's a good Spider-Man film I'm not sure. I'm not sure about it, and yeah, it's a tough one. I think this film has a lot to it, and it's definitely has had an impact. That's for sure. That's definitely had an impact. But yeah, there's something about the MCU's portrayal of a Spider-Man story that just to me feels different to what I would ultimately like it to be. So yeah, I'm not sure about that, but we'll discuss it. So we shall start with Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man. Anthony, why don't you go first?
Yeah. So kind of, I felt it was almost unfair to, because going into this film, immediately I was like, oh, this is a sequel to Homecoming. And then I had to correct myself. No, it's a sequel to Endgame. It's not a sequel to Homecoming. Homecoming was what, like 2016, whenever. Endgame is
2017.
the
2017.
2017. Endgame is like right now, it's 2023, and so is this film. Um, so I felt we got a more accurate portrayal of Peter Parker in relation to the comics, how he's kind of this really nerdy kid, not good, almost not good socializing with most other characters. He's like in something the Raimi films are very good at is that kind of Parker luck, and we talked about this in the Spider-Man 2 review, where nothing goes his way at all, and it's kind of just you can see this as a viewer. You're like, shit, that sucks, dude. Um, I think in this film they did a pretty good job, honestly, in showing that. Like, first example would be when they're kind of on the plane, and he goes and buys this like dual adapter thing for the headphones, and he has this plan to sit next to MJ and all of that. And he's like, "All right, you like tell them my ears or whatever. Oh, I'm allergic to perfume." So then the teacher overhears, and he's like, "Oh, yo, come sit next to me. I'm allergic to perfume too." So it's kind of that like his luck is just horrible, and that his great plan to sit next to MJ is just goes to shit, and he's like next to the weirdo teacher who's like, "Hey, my wife left me. You don't do that when you're my age because it's really depressing." Whoa. Um, I thought the movie did this fairly well. I felt this movie also because going into a different character, the villain is, if you know Spider-Man comics, you know who the villain is. And it's one of those movies where it's like, oh, they don't know, the main character has no idea. Um, and that twist is almost believable for you as the viewer, and you kind of go along with Peter. You're like, yeah, this guy seems all right. So yeah, I thought it was. I liked this portrayal of Peter more than I did in Homecoming, honestly, because in Homecoming it was like, oh shit, she's the girl Liz, the daughter of the Vulture. It's like she's obviously a very attractive and popular girl, and we all know Peter Parker is not. Those two things don't mix. And obviously you had the twist with the Vulture being her dad. That's again another like Parker luck thing. But I felt this film did it a lot better.
Okay, what about you, Callum?
I do like Peter in this film. I think he is really good in this film, and I prefer him in this to Homecoming. But there's just a few issues that I have with, like I said, this incarnation. There's a couple of things, and it sort of surrounds his character. But the biggest thing for me is something that I've realised. It's quite a small thing, but for me, it's quite impactful thing. Is that how Uncle Ben as a character in the Spider-Man universe is literally non-existent. There's no sort of impact with him, and there's a big problem I have, as we see in a shot when early in the film, Peter is packing, and we get a shot of when he closes the bag. It says BFP, Benjamin Franklin Parker, is what I believe, and that's Uncle Ben's case, right? Now think of a line at the end of the film where Aunt May and Peter reunite. What does Aunt May say? Where are your bags? Oh, that's right, they got destroyed. Isn't anyone going to acknowledge that? It's sort of weird how Uncle Ben as a character is such impactful with Spider-Man as a character. When something like that is used kind of as a joke, it doesn't really mean anything.
Mm.
Yeah, I see your point. Yeah,
It really bugs me.
I would
really
agree
bugs
with
me.
a general theme I've started to notice with these Tom Holland Spider-Man films is that all the things that make Peter Parker the character that he is, they are turning it into more like entertainment rather than impactful storytelling. And I find that enjoyable, but it feels cheap compared to like when Sam Raimi did it. If you get what I'm saying. And I feel like again it's like even though like I absolutely love Endgame and I love and Infinity War and I love the whole thing between Iron Man and Spider-Man, there's something about the fact that they've tried to make Iron Man the Uncle Ben of this film.
Yeah.
It just feels wrong. It doesn't work the same way either. Because Iron Man is not anything like Uncle Ben at all.
No. I'm totally fine with there being a whole film about Peter grieving over Tony. That is something I'm completely fine with. But I feel like they don't... It feels like more that they purposely make it sort of background, but you can see it. Like you see a lot of times in this film, a lot of artwork around all the cities of the world with Iron Man artwork to make you seem like Peter says later, he sees his face everywhere, which is fine, but it never feels like it really acknowledges it. There's a time where he leaves the sort of big pie thing with Aunt May for the donations, all that, and you get the shot of him looking at an Iron Man artwork on the wall, and you see him grieving for a minute, but that doesn't get played up on after that. It seems like the first 20 minutes are so fast paced, but nothing really happens. It's sort of jarring for me.
Again, I feel like a lot of it is done for the purpose of entertainment rather than storytelling.
Yeah.
And that does bother me a bit because it's like, it bothers me because it means that people are going to love this film who only care about like surface level shite, like, you know, like good laughs and production values and
forced comedy. And this film has a lot of forced comedy. Don't get me wrong, there was quite a lot of jokes that I laughed at and did enjoy, but there's a lot of forced comedy, which seems to be a running theme in all MCU films, that there has to be a certain amount of comedy. Like about 35% of the film has to have some sort of comedy in it. Just every single one. And it really does bug me that it feels like it's trying so hard to be like, okay, let's make sure we keep the audience somewhat entertained. If something's not happening, let's throw a joke in so that they are like, oh, that scene was quite funny. It just feels like it's like there's so many filler scenes, but there's also a lot of comedy in those filler scenes, and it really bugs me that it's not taking that time to then focus on Peter's grief of Iron Man, or hell, even developing any other character in this film, because that's another problem I have with this Spider-Man MCU version. The only characters that actually matter are Peter, the villain of whatever film he's in, Tony, and that's about it. Ned doesn't matter. Flash doesn't matter. Betty doesn't matter. The only person who probably would matter is MJ. But that's only because she's in a romance with Peter, so their arcs are intertwined. Other than that, no other character matters. With the Sam Raimi films, and I know we keep talking about the Sam Raimi films, but it's a valid point. Every single character in the Raimi films, more or less, has a character that you understand, and you understand what they're about.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
Yeah.
Because what Sam Raimi does, he makes every character, even characters that don't matter to the overarching plot, like, for example, the rent guy. You understand who he's like, and you understand what he's about. He's a good man, but he is wanting rent to make sure he keeps up his living. You fully understand what the character is, what they are about, and their relation to Peter. With the MCU, Ned in Homecoming was the guy in the chair, right? And I think they did that quite well in Homecoming. In this film, all he does is has this movie-long story comedy thing with Betty. And while it's funny at times, don't get me wrong, it's funny. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything for the plot. It doesn't mean anything for Peter. It's wasting time, either something that could develop Ned as a character, or even that time could be diverted to MJ or Peter, hell, or even Mysterio, or even Aunt May, because that's another thing I have a problem with. Aunt May is just a joke. That's all she is. She's a joke in these films.
And that's with all the films she's in. Civil War and Homecoming and this one.
Yeah. At least with Homecoming, there are little scenes, right? Where the scene where her and Peter are talking, and she knows, like you said, she knows he sneaks out at night, and she's worried. That's the only point in Homecoming where she actually matters as a character. In this, nothing. There's not a single scene where I'm like, oh, Aunt May is developing, or Aunt May is giving Peter inspiration like she does in even the bad ones, like Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2. There is something, at least one scene, where we understand that her character is developing, or developing with Peter, or benefiting Peter's character. In Homecoming, and Far From Home especially, she means zilch to Peter as a character. Yeah. Like I said earlier with Uncle Ben's bag being blown up, that is something that Aunt May would be devastated about. In any other incarnation, she would be devastated that the one thing that she had left of Uncle Ben, apart from pictures, his bag, is destroyed, and she says it as a joke. It means nothing to this character. And I can't explain how, really thinking about it, after watching this film twice now, how annoyed that makes me. Don't get me wrong. I really like this film, but those little moments that seem so little to other people are so big for me because it means that the character does not matter.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think
for sure.
it's very likely that, the makers of this film may have been thinking, oh, what is it that people like about Spider-Man films? Oh, it's mainly the memes, right? So what they probably tried to do is they're thinking, well, if we try and make as many memes as possible in one film, then people are going to like it. But that doesn't, like, that. The difference with that is with Sam Raimi is the memes were dressing over the top of all this character. If that makes sense. Like, even, like, you mentioned the Rent Man. Think about bloody Mr. Aziz, who's in one scene in Spider-Man 2. Right?
At the very beginning, first 5 minutes in that scene, that's all he has.
And he's a massive meme, and like he's meant to be a comedic character, but he means so much to the story, and you understand his point of view, and he's taking, like, it's funny because he's taking it so seriously. Whereas
like he says, he takes it seriously.
Yeah, whereas this film is funny because no one takes anything seriously. If that makes sense. Which is a very different kind of humor.
Yeah, they say it with Brad when they arrive in London. They talk about how is no one going to notice how Peter is disappearing all the time, and they use that as a joke for the characters. And I'm just like, that's fine, but it doesn't benefit the plot in any way. It's just used as a joke.
Yeah, and I think again that's going to be a running theme when I compare the Raimi films to these ones. Is that in the Raimi films, the funny parts, the characters are taking it seriously. Like J. Jonah Jameson, for example, who is obviously in Spider-Man 2 is a very funny character, and he makes wise cracks and whatnot. But the scene where he fires and then unfires Peter, right? He's actually genuinely fucking pissed at him because he didn't take pictures of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And now his newspaper's going to be...
What that does for us at the very beginning of the film, to represent where Peter is at, where he is at in this moment of the film, from the in between from Spider-Man 1 and 2, we understand where Peter is at, where his head's at, and what bad stuff is happening. He's constantly losing jobs. He's unreliable because he is Spider-Man, and that is the burden he has to endure. In this, it just seems like he's Spider-Man nonchalantly, that most of the characters don't matter to him apart from MJ and they're villains of that story. So in this case, it would be Vulture and Mysterio. Those are the only characters that matter because they have a connection to him. But even then, and by the way, I'm getting all this negative stuff out beginning of the video because I do really like this film and I have quite a few positives to say. I'm just getting all the negatives out in the beginning. Both of the villains from Homecoming and Far From Home, they're not connected to Peter directly. They are villains that spawn because of Tony Stark. They don't spawn because of Spider-Man, or they're not related to Spider-Man. They are related because of Tony Stark. And don't get me wrong, I love the way they do it. I do, but the beauty of the Sam Raimi films is that every single villain is connected to Peter. Spider-Man 1, Green Goblin, Norman Osborn. Father of Harry Osborn, who is Peter's best friend. Spider-Man 2, Doc Ock is Peter's idol and is doing a paper on him. And understands him because they're on the same wavelength of, because they're both very smart people. Spider-Man 3, Eddie Brock, his rival. Basically the opposite of Peter, because they both are getting the staff job at the Daily Bugle. Sandman, because he killed Uncle Ben. While I don't like that, at the very least, what they set out to do makes sense, and actually the ending of that story between them, I really, really love. With Vulture and Mysterio, while they are great villains, I think they are both great villains. They do not connect with Peter because they are spawned from Tony. And that's what I have to say on that.
Hell, I mean, even though we really didn't like them, Lizard and Green Goblin from the Amazing Spider-Man films do have a direct connection with Peter Parker. Electro doesn't, but fuck Electro.
Yeah. And I've got...
That's the worst movie. Don't talk about that movie.
Yeah. Cheers. And the last big problem that I have is everyone remembers the line that Peter says to Ned when Ned finds out that Peter's Spider-Man, why Aunt May doesn't know. Because Peter said May would flip out and stop him from being Spider-Man. And then she finds out at the end of Homecoming, right? Where is the payoff to that?
It was
when
off
at
screen.
any moment,
It was off
when
screen.
at any moment,
no,
I know,
a joke
but
at the end of Homecoming. What the fuck?
Yeah, no. That's such a big moment. They made that such a big deal in Homecoming. If after everything that's happened, saying what Peter says to Ned, he can't do that to her right now. But then that happens at the end of Homecoming, and only a year has passed because in Homecoming he's 15 and in this film he's 16. So a year has passed in terms of them both being alive because they both got snapped. So they've had a year in their lifetime to deal with it. They don't mention it at all. They don't mention the fallout to it, and it's wasted potential.
Yep. Right then. Now that you got that off your chest.
Yeah, I got a lot off my chest.
Yeah. I'm struggling to think of what I can say about Peter Parker more than that without talking about other characters, because he's.
I think I think the rest of the film, everything to do with Peter is involved with the other characters. Yeah,
the one thing I will say is I'll bring it up again in detail later is that there is a lot of moments in this film that mirror like essential Spider-Man moments that you see in the other films, but in this film, the execution of it, to me, there's something off about it. It doesn't quite hit the same way. I think it's because it's done out of necessity and it doesn't have a purpose, or at least it does have a purpose, but it doesn't lead to any consequences. There is one example of that in particular, is when they're going to the opera show, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like the whole thing of like, oh, I'll sit next to you or something. Mm-hmm. And then he leaves her because he has to be Spider-Man, which is something that it's like straight out of Tobey Maguire, because that's something that he wouldn't turn up to MJ's performances because he had to be Spider-Man. Right? That's something straight out of Spider-Man 2. But that never leads anywhere because the next time MJ sees him, she has no problems with him whatsoever. She's still attached. No. There's no complaint. It's so annoying that they don't actually have any consequences to these events. They just happen.
They needed more of that. When you see that shot of Peter looking back as he's like about to leave, looking at MJ, and you can see like he doesn't want to go, but he needs to go. We needed more of that in this film. Because like you said, that's straight out of the Sam Raimi films.
When I saw that, I was excited to see where it would go, because one thing that we haven't seen from MJ in this version at all is frustration. She's never shown any frustration in the two films she's been in. Because obviously in the first one she was just a joke. And then in the second one she is what she is. We'll get onto her. But she never showed any frustration. So I was thinking, now that he's doing this, that moment happened. I'm thinking this is the moment when she becomes like a proper character.
Yeah.
Because I want to see her get frustrated at him for, but then it's, as we all know, it's like
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
As
Do you
we
think
all know,
would have been great? You can say what you say, Anthony.
Oh no, I was gonna say, do you think they like didn't show that because they were like, oh, we can't have it too close to the like old Raimi ones,
yeah, but that's
and they like
that's a
it was
mistake.
just them like, oh, let's just be different to like the old ones because if we do the same, then it'll just be
it felt
like
slightly.
another like, oh, you just got the old one and redid it. I don't know.
mean,
It's not. It's
I'm
just a query from myself.
I'm gonna start talking about MJ as well now because I think I need to
Mhm.
justify my points.
Yeah.
So a common theme I have with this film is it feels very subversive. But one thing that, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but one thing that I find strange, and it goes back to what we were saying before about making important moments feel like a joke, is the fact that she already knew he was Spider-Man. That whole, like, that's like one of the biggest things that the film was building up to, right? And then, like,
Yeah.
when he left her at the opera, I was expecting her to get frustrated at him because Peter's not, he's messing her around. But then when he goes to tell her that he's Spider-Man, she's like, oh yeah, I know.
Mhm.
And like, whilst
What
that's
would
quite,
what would
whilst
have been
that's,
really good? Would have been great is when Peter arrives back at the hotel, right? And then him and MJ have that conversation. If MJ like challenged him, saying like, "Where did you go? You weren't sick when I saw you, and then a minute later you're gone. Like, what's going on?" That would have been great. That generally would have been great because then that is a consequence. That's a consequence to Peter leaving because of that, because of what happened, because he left the opera.
yeah,
Like that would have been great, but no, they don't do that.
yeah, and yeah, it's likely that they may have done it because they see some people don't like get annoyed at Kirsten Dunst's MJ when she challenges Peter Parker, even though that's just, in my opinion, that's really dumb. Like, because I think MJ and especially Spider-Man 2 is actually a very good character, and when she challenges Peter Parker, it's fair. It makes
Yeah,
sense. So
it makes
for,
complete sense.
for them to avoid that just to make it like a joke, I don't understand why you would do that. It just frustrates me that it felt like it was done more. Again, I'm going to say this a lot. It felt like it was done more for entertainment rather than storytelling.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's like I was spoiled that in a trailer that MJ found out because I saw that, so I knew that was coming. But still, they could have led up to it a lot better, I think. What I think that MJ and Peter have a good chemistry between each other because I think Zendaya and Tom Holland have really good chemistry together,
Yeah, definitely.
and they work off each other so well. I think, and it's believable. And MJ in this film is a lot better character than she was in Homecoming because it's not that.
Absolutely.
Because in Homecoming, she was more like, oh, I'm just a bit of a loner, making fun of people and stuff like that. In this, she's just like an awkward teenager dealing with the fact that like she likes this person, and it's like she says, she like sort of not denies it, but doesn't. Is like, no, of course I just followed you because I thought you were Spider-Man. Well, that's really good, and I think that's done well. It's just I wish that there was just a bit more like we mentioned that she would have been. It would have been great if she challenged him after the opera when he returned back to the hotel. Getting him in a sense because at that point she thinks that Peter might be Spider-Man. She could have just challenged him to sort of get it out of him. At the very least, that would have been fine.
Mm.
But yeah, but no,
But yeah,
they didn't do that, and it was just sort of meh.
Anthony, what did you think of MJ?
I really liked the kind of cutesy teenager shit. That was good. It was believable because these characters were what, like 16 years old. So it's like that stuff is, you're gonna get that stuff, in a real kind of story with these kind of characters. Um, with the whole like when they're on the bridge and she's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm just interested in you because I think you're Spider-Man." I was like, "Oh fuck!" Like I thought that was a real thing. I thought they were actually going to be like, "Yeah, she only gives a shit because she thinks this. She has a theory." So I was like, "Oh, yo, that's cool. Like we have a kind of Peter who has to deal with this shit now too. Like, oh, the girl's not interested in him really." Um, but then again, like you guys are saying, it's just like, oh well, she already knew, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it just fit to me. It felt subversive, and it was done for the purpose of
It was
entertainment.
it was done for the reaction of the audience to go like, ha ha ha, funny.
Exactly.
But other than that, I thought she was well, kind of rounded out from Homecoming because Homecoming, it's just like, I'm this
I thought she
random
was
character who's,
honestly,
you know,
honestly, I thought she was fucking annoying in Homecoming. Like,
yeah, yeah. Well, because she's got like maybe 12 lines, and they're all like, this was built by slaves. And like maybe
Yeah.
the first or second time it happens in Homecoming, you laugh, and then like it keeps going. You're like, all right, that's enough now. I've had enough of that
yeah.
shit.
There's also, I don't know if it's to do with the writing, the direction, or the actress, but there's something I find very irritating about when she goes into her facade personality. And like
Yeah,
I like that it is a facade. I do like that because
Mm.
that's cool. It makes it layered. But when she flips into the whole like fake, um, you know, like when her face goes blank and she's trying to act like she's being serious, but it's like done for the intention of comedy. I just find that side of her very annoying.
yeah.
It's not the kind of humor I'm into at all. It feels, again, ironically, because obviously she got famous from Disney Channel, it feels like Disney Channel humor.
Yeah, well, there you go. Because
Yeah,
like in saying that, it's possible, sorry, that the studio was like, oh, just make shit up, and that's what she did. And like because she's been on Disney Channel, that's all she knows.
yeah. And I can understand why that would work for like a certain age group or whatever, but I just don't think it's very funny. I think it's dumb,
Yeah,
but that's
I
just me.
like um because you guys were saying before there are kind of beats in this movie where it is funny, and then there are beats that just miss, and you're like, okay, we're done with that joke. Can we get to the, you know?
Yeah, and like and
Um,
like and like, there's
yeah,
the whole thing of the fact that she's being so obviously Peter is jealous of this other guy in his class who's like
yeah.
flirting with her, but there's no consequence to that because she just stops talking to that guy, and there's no sequence of events. It just happens, and it's
So
again, like I said, I feel like it's just done for a joke.
I wanna get deeper into this because I previously said I liked the whole like cutesy teenage shit with them. For me, it was super obvious that like MJ liked Peter as well, but because Peter has this whole like, oh shit, I need to impress her and blah blah blah, he doesn't realize it. Because like that's relatable, right? Like that's happened to many people before, where like, or like their friend like likes someone and they're like, oh shit, like what do I do? And it's like, dude, she fucking likes you. How can you not see it? Are you blind? Like for me, I was like, oh shit, she obviously likes Peter as well, but because he's like in this whole thing of like, I need to win her approval and I need to do all this shit. He's like, I need to beat this other guy, this other fucking random muscly dude who didn't go away in the snap or whatever. So I don't know. But I do agree that a lot of that humor was kind of just like, haha, look at this man. He's gonna get blown up by a missile. Ah, jokes. No, he's not. We're not an R-rated film.
Well, I mean, like I said, it just didn't result in anything at all. It was again, it was they thought of a sorry, they thought of a way to have like a, obviously that the whole
Yeah,
5 years thing is creative. Like the first sort of 10 minutes of the film, that I love all that stuff. That's fucking cool. How
yeah.
they integrated the snap into the film, and it's not only like quite interesting, but it's also genuinely quite funny, and it's one of those humorous things that it's very unique to the MCU.
Yeah.
And it's just weird to think it's like Thanos' snap. It really shows that affected everything.
Yeah.
And I really
Yeah,
liked
no, it
that.
did.
And I liked the idea of this guy who was young and nerdy who just grew up over the 5 years and now he's whatever. Like he's this jock
Yeah.
now. I like
Yeah.
that. But beyond that and like the jokes, it doesn't go anywhere. And we never
No.
see MJ's reaction to him ever. She's just
Yeah.
completely blasé about it. And then
Because I was
and then
expecting like
and then it,
at
yeah,
least
and
one scene with like her and him, and he tries something, and she's like, "Dude, just fuck off!" Like, you're obviously like a very muscly dude who's just like, "Yo, my dick."
yeah, and I think there's something strange about the fact that there's the whole great power, great responsibility thing. In this film, again, it's done more for humor, which I find really odd. Like, for example, so obviously, great power, great responsibility. You think of the Sam Raimi films and like how I think you said Callum in one of the reviews. It's like it revolves around Peter having to sacrifice his life to do the right thing, right? That's basically the what Uncle Ben was leading onto, and in Spider-Man 2, it's his entire character revolves around that. Whereas in this film, he's given power because he's given like Iron Man's glasses and all that, but it's not responsibility in terms of him having to sacrifice. It's just like it's him learning. Oh, I need to not be an idiot and press the wrong buttons, and I just find that really silly. Like the fact that
Yeah.
his character revolves around being bumbling and not, not not very good with technology.
I do want to get further into that, but we'd have to go into a different character,
Yeah,
which involves spoilers. So I'll wait for that other character to be brought up.
yeah. But do you understand what I'm trying to say? Where it's like it feels like the whole great power, great responsibility thing in this film. It's twisted so that it feels like Peter Parker is like a slapstick goof
Well,
rather
there's
than
even a scene when he's on the plane with Happy, and he's just like, "I fucked up." It's not like, "Oh shit, I did this," and that means that it's just I fucked up. I gave him the glasses. Shit.
yeah. And I think there's something to be said about this. There's a big difference between making a mistake and losing everything to be the hero that the people need. That they're so different in approaches of that side of Spider-Man's character for me.
Yeah.
And again, like I've said, with a lot of this film, that scene on the bus where he almost blows up his friends, it's funny. It's certainly funny. But I don't see how that's good for Peter Parker's character in the long term, making him that just silly, especially because this is the second film, a singular film that we've had with him. It's almost like he just doesn't have any development. He's still just awkward. So I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. It just feels a bit cheap.
It just feels like that. We've had now two films, right, and they're 2 years apart from releases, and he's still in high school. It feels like they're overdoing the whole like, oh, Spider-Man's always been he's a kid, so he needs to stay in high school as long as possible and stuff like that. That's what it feels like. It feels like he's not growing, he's not developing like he naturally should. Like for me, right, I'm totally fine with a fully centric high school film, and that's what Homecoming was. I think they should have done a few things better, but I think relatively they did it relatively good. With this, it feels like he should be nearly the end of high school at the earliest. Like he's growing now. He's growing to become having to learn that he now has to take responsibility post high school. That wow, this is going to be like a more regular thing now. I'm not going to be in school or anything like that. It just feels like it's dawdling a lot around this sort of awkward teenager phase of his life, because I have no idea where the next film will go. Is he still going to be in high school in the next film, in the third film, in the Spider-Man this trilogy of Spider-Man films in the MCU? Is he still going to be in high school? It feels like it's, like I said, it's taking its merry old time almost too much.
Yeah,
And that's
and
just
also,
a little nitpick I have.
and also one thing that I'm going to go back to again with the film being subversive with its comedy. There's that scene where he gets hit by the train, and it's actually quite a serious moment because like he could have died, and like when you look at him, he is completely like almost ruined in that moment, and then like so obviously it's quite a big moment in the film, and then straight after that he wakes up and he's in like jail with a bunch of like random Dutch people, and it's just all a joke. I just don't understand what the point of following up serious moments with that kind of comedy does for the character. It just feels like, again, it feels like it's done purely for entertainment.
Yeah. It just feels like that the MCU doesn't fully understand Peter as a character and how he should be developing. That's the biggest thing for me. They feel so like, oh, people didn't like how old Tobey Maguire looked and how quickly he rose from like high school to then getting a job and stuff like that. It feels like they've taken that too far, where he's literally just stuck in this teenager phase. He's awkward, he's goofy, and all that, sort of not taking him fully seriously.
Yeah, and I feel like they put way too much focus on trying to make him likable rather than making him an actual character.
Yeah, right. Because I feel like the essential like points of what makes Spider-Man, they're kind of missing. For me personally, I think they're just sort of not there. It feels like he like has no. It's just quite. What I would have liked in this film to really give Peter perspective is that if MJ got with Brad, like at the end of the film, because we all know as soon as Brad is introduced as basically this third guy in this love triangle, we all knew that it wasn't going to work out. We all knew that she wouldn't be interested in him because he doesn't have that much screen time anyway. But what would be really great is that because Peter keeps running off and because Peter keeps basically abandoning MJ, if she would then just talk to Brad a lot and spent time with Brad and we got screen time of that, just little bits, just throughout the film, little bits where they're talking together and they're getting along. If by the end of it, if they got together and that in a sense destroys Peter, but he realizes that that's probably the best thing because he's Spider-Man and he doesn't have time for stuff like that. That would have been great. That would have really given Peter the realization that he can't have a normal life like he wants in this film. He keeps saying how he wants to go on vacation, but really, when it comes to being superhero, there's no days off. There aren't any days off. You have to be prepared almost at all times. And I'm fine with him at first being like, well, I want a vacation. I want to relax. And that's totally fine. But by the end of the film, it should be him realizing that, no, I can't really always have what I want when I have this job. I have this ability to do things. And he doesn't. If that would have been great if they just did that, I think. And I know that's sort of what Spider-Man 2 does, but then that would have just gone on. In here, it would have been great because that's something that Peter can earn to, much like in Spider-Man 2. At one point in the MCU, they can get together and stuff like that. So I feel like if they did that, it would have been a lot better and felt more like Peter's developing as not just a character, but as a relatable person, as a relatable human being. Just that's my thoughts.
Yeah, but again, it just felt like they went for the sunflower and daisies approach.
Yeah.
Which is ironic because there's actually a scene where he walks through a field of flowers. But yeah, it just... Yeah. It was too... it was... I'm not going to say safe, but it was just... I just think it was too... It didn't have the balls. It was
too basic.
Yeah, it was far too like willing to just do what people wanted with
Yeah.
it.
It's
I agree.
interesting because I thought it was like a nice, because obviously, we've said that the film before this was Endgame, like a very heavy kind of
Mm.
movie in terms of characters dying, and it scratched a lot of the fans' backs in terms of what they wanted to see. So I think again, ending Phase 4, in fact, with something like
Phase
Far
3.
From Home, Phase 3, sorry, with something like Far From Home is a nice little like. This is the MCU, and it's not always like death and destruction and just
Yeah, but
everything's
the
fucked.
thing is though, that's one of the big things that I found underwhelming about the Ant-Man films, because both those
Right.
films followed up Avengers films, and it
Yeah,
felt like
yeah,
such a step down, especially Ant-Man and the Wasp. I was completely deflated watching it because I just watched Infinity War. So
yeah, and you want to know, yeah,
I was very just like, oh, this is so just nice and friendly and happy that,
yeah,
it feels off.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And I do think that this film, it could have worked as a fun, exciting film post Endgame. I really do think it could. I think just have it, but I think having what I've suggested, have that in the film, while it being light-hearted and stuff, still would have worked.
Yeah.
I really
Mhm.
still
But
think it would have worked.
but the one thing that I am optimistic about is that obviously we will get to the specifics of the scene, the one.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the fact that he's now exposed,
Mm.
I think the next Spider-Man film would be very interesting because of
Yeah.
that.
I
Or it
generally
takes us
think,
to a
right?
spot we've never ever seen in film.
Exactly. That's
Yeah,
that's what I think. I think if they run with this, if they run with this idea, it could, it has the potential to be the best Spider-Man film. Period.
yeah. I feel like the next Spider-Man film could potentially be like the Spider-Man 2 of the MCU. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Oof,
It
oof.
it could be it 100%.
Yeah,
If they run with it and they execute it well, like feel like there's definitely a way to make this work.
yeah. Because you know how
It
with
absolutely could.
with the Iron Man films, right? The first two
Hmm.
have like this kind of. I mean, obviously the first one has a lot of character because obviously it's introducing Tony Stark, but um, the first two Iron Man films feel more like events, whereas the third Iron Man film is far more like punishing and it's more character driven.
Yeah.
I feel like Spider Man needs a film like that because
Yeah.
these
It
first
needs.
two,
Yeah.
Homecoming and Far From Home, are I would compare to sort of like Iron Man 1 and 2, where they are eventful and fun, but they don't
Mm.
quite have that punch in the gut. And I think the third Spider-Man film for Tom Holland needs to get into that gear. I think, which may
Yeah. I.
upset some people, but I don't care. Like they need to do it.
Yeah. They need to give me a reason to properly care about
Yeah,
Spider-Man as a character.
yeah. Now,
Because while
obviously,
I do like him a lot, it just feels like that he is still stuck in this. Oh, I'm a superhero. I'll want to be a superhero here, but then I want to go on vacation and live my life. It's like he, in a sense, shouldn't be able to do that because that's the essence of Spider-Man. And some
mm,
people will be like, well, I don't always want Spider-Man to be like that. It's like, that's fine, but that's what Peter Parker is like. There are
mm,
Spider-Man films like Into the Spider-Verse, which the main character is Miles Morales. So the way you judge the character for me is different. There are, the term is like what makes a good Peter Parker film, and that's what Spider-Man 2 is. So now it's like with Into the Spider-Verse, it's what makes a good Miles Morales film. So
mm.
that's the way I sort of judge Spider-Man films, because every single Spider-Man film can just be a really good Spider-Man film. It's fun, energetic, exciting, great villain, and really, really good story. But the specific of is this a great Peter Parker film is when you judge it off the character Peter Parker, and I don't think this is a really good Peter Parker film.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And it's complicated because again, like we said, we like him. We like Tom
We
Holland as
really do.
Peter Parker.
I think, yeah, Tom Holland is the best actor to play Peter Parker. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah,
And I think the just general scenes that he has are fun and they fit the character. there's just nothing to develop him, to develop
Yeah.
that character, to
Yeah.
push him to the limit, to make him on the brink of, this is a massive weight on my shoulders, and you don't feel that he feels the massive weight on his shoulders. He almost tries to opt out in a sense in this film. He tries to opt out, and it just makes you feel like he doesn't take it as seriously as I feel like I take the character seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's again, it's like it's one of those things of, whilst I love Civil War, we never really got a backstory for this Spider-Man.
No,
and
but I don't think you need to. But you need to have this sort of element that
you need to have his reaction to it.
His past is what develops him and pushes him, but you never get the sense of that. You get a bit of that in Civil War where he's like, if you have the powers to do the things I do, but you don't, and the bad things happen, they happen because of you. That's what he says to Tony, but you never feel like he takes the responsibility of that, especially in this film where he just wants to be a normal guy and have this plan to get with this girl that he likes. It never feels like in this film he wants to be Spider-Man, and that kind of bugs me a bit. I feel like that's an idea that can work, but it's not executed well for me personally.
Yeah, I thought the whole like him not wanting to be Spider-Man, like at first when he's in his room and he looks at the two suits and he kind of goes, nah. I was like, because I remembered the scene from Endgame where he's there when Tony is dying and he's bawling his eyes out. I'm like, okay, that's fair enough. And then when they get to like wherever they stop first, it might be Venice. I was kind of like, okay, put on the damn suit. I came to watch Spider-Man. Please put the fucking suit on, And that's my big issue with this film. My biggest one actually was the speed at which it goes until one event hits. It's very slow, and then something happens, and then you're like, oh shit, here we are. There's Spider-Man, But I think because they wanted to carry over that whole like, oh, I don't really want to be Spider-Man because I just watched my mentor fucking die. Yeah. It's like, okay, but this is a Spider-Man film. I came to see Spider-Man. Where is he?
I think the first act is pretty bad. And I think Act 2 and 3 are really good.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely.
I think
Act 1 was super slow, and I was sitting there like, come on, man,
I think Act 1 is really bad.
Yeah, I really don't like the way the film starts.
Yeah, I don't either.
It's straight into like,
just happens.
It's straight into like...
It opens up with the introduction of Mysterio and the elements, and then it cuts to this memorial piece, which is funny, but I feel like it's right after Endgame. It feels like while we can make fun of Endgame, the events of it in the future, I feel like having it the film right after feels a bit off. And then having it literally be like, okay, now Peter's back in high school. He now has had enough time to develop this plan. And I'm just like, oh, okay. And then they go on vacation.
But they never, like, again, a whole bunch of stuff happens off screen. Because in Homecoming, he never actually says that he likes MJ, ever.
This is the first time that we see it.
Yeah,
this film is where the introduction of...
Like, straight into it, there's no development. It's just straight away his first scene.
I like it. Hey, Peter likes MJ. And we accept it because we know MJ as a character is someone that Peter likes, but we still, at least in the Sam Raimi films, when it's introduced in Spider-Man 1, he explains why. He explains the history. Yeah. Even though that's exposition, it still makes sense. And you're still like, oh, okay, I understand what his motivations are. I understand what he is like as a character and why he likes this person and what his goals are. With this, it's just like, oh, Peter likes MJ. Boom. Now they're discussing a plan. It's like, there's no easing in. There's no easing into it. It's just sort of like, hey, this first thing happens. This happens. Peter's going on a plane. Now they're in Venice. And then he becomes Spider-Man. I think the first act is really poor. But I think acts 1 and 2 are really, really good.
You mean 2 and 3, you mean?
2 and 3, yeah. 2 and 3 of those acts are great.
Well, I think it's probably time for us to get into the next character.
Mm.
Because it seems like we've gotten everything off our chest about Peter Parker and MJ, right?
Yep.
Okay. Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio. Anthony, go first.
So, I said earlier, like going into this movie, you've got to be a fucking idiot if you didn't know like what was coming. Honestly, this movie did really well to convince me otherwise. Like we got up to the scene where they're in the bar, and I'm like, shit, Mysterio's a cool guy.
Oh yeah, I've got
And
a
then
question
Peter
about that
leaves,
scene.
and I'm
though.
like, oh fuck, all right,
I've got a question about that scene though.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why was Peter willing to drink in a bar with his Spider-Man suit on, with his mask off,
Mask off, yeah.
in
I've
front
seen
of
that
all
as
those people? Why?
I
Aha.
want to the one answer I have to that, and it's a shitty answer, I'm aware. Um, oh, I'm overseas. Nobody knows who I am.
And plus, I look like Night Monkey and not Spider-Man.
Yeah,
So it's like,
it's a
it's
very
like they,
poor explanation as well.
So,
yeah.
so the justification for a plot hole is that it's a joke,
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
and
yeah,
also
because
that
of the whole Night
people
Monkey
in,
thing.
and also that they've now established that Spider-Man doesn't mean shit outside of New York.
No.
yeah,
Great.
Yeah. It's like when you think about it, it's like you can make up an excuse for it, but it's not a good one. But it's like, yeah, it's not a massive detail, but yeah, it's something
Yeah.
that you be like, if you think about it, really, it's like, wait, why the fuck is he
Hang
got
on a
his
sec.
mask off when he's got a suit on?
yeah, yeah. No, but Mysterio was actually I really enjoyed this character. Even because obviously I was like, yes, he's the bad guy. You know, there's no shit about it. I love the way they used, I want to say Doctor Strange-esque animations
Yeah.
for his whole. Is it a dream sequence? Is it a
No,
hypnosis?
it's an illusion
Illusion.
because he's used.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
he
love
uses the drones. He uses the drones made by Tony Stark, and the sort of illusion that he did in Civil War. He uses those to make the illusions. And the two illusion scenes that we have with Pierre, we have the first one where he's been tortured basically by Mysterio, and then we get the second one where he uses his spider sense. Those two are my favorite scenes in the whole film. Those two are literally fucking fantastic scenes. I
Yeah.
love those. And Jake Gyllenhaal is great as Mysterio.
Yeah.
He is so perfectly casted. It just sounds like and feels like Mysterio. It's really, really good. The first half of his arc where he's pretending to be this superhero, it's really, really good because you're convinced in a sense by his acting. While we know in hindsight he's acting, it's very, very good. He feels like a superhero. His theme has two like sections to it where he has the hero part of his theme and then the villain part of the theme. They're the same like chords and stuff like that, but it's the minors and the chord differences that you sense of it, that you hear in his theme. It's very, very cleverly done.
I want to liken it. Oh, sorry. Keep going, Callum.
Yeah, I was just say that I love how like this is a really great detail from Jake Gyllenhaal. So when he's a superhero, you totally believe it, but then when it's in the London, this Act 3, and when he's talking to Fury, you can sort of hear the fake acting in his voice, how he's constantly just making shit up. And you get the line from Nick Fury was like, "Now that's some bullshit," because you can tell the difference between the two. So that's very great acting from Jake Gyllenhaal to sort of differentiate, to get the difference between the two. It's very nice little detail.
Yeah, I think he's the best performance in this film.
Yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal is great. Whenever he has like the bubble on his head and you hear the echo sound of when he talks, it sounds exactly how I think Mysterio would talk. In any other like TV show or video game, it sounds exactly like Mysterio. So he's got a great voice for it as well.
I want to liken this to like the Vulture from Homecoming, right? So his whole character is he was, what was he, damage control? His like first job was damage control, and his whole story was that he, like a vulture, gets the kind of remains and uses them and builds, like wings and guns and shit. So it's like his villain, like it's the vulture. He gets shit and he scavenges like a real vulture, right? Mysterio's one was that the whole time, like his whole act through the movie, it's all an act, it's all a facade, and that's what he creates illusions. His whole character, his whole fake character, sorry, is an illusion. I really liked how they kind of did that again with a Spider-Man villain, and I hope to God they continue that trend with these MCU Spider-Man villains. Please, please, Marvel, keep doing that. It's great. Don't stop doing that.
Is Mysterio a Spider-Man villain originally?
Yes, he is.
All right, okay. Because when I saw him, I was thinking, is this guy taken from like Doctor Strange, like you said?
No, yeah.
Because like the illusions he was using reminded me of Doctor Strange.
Yeah, I think they say that like he's a mix of. Well, they say he's like a mix of like Thor and Iron Man, and then Aunt May says that was that like Mr. Strange and stuff like that.
Yeah,
which is quite funny. But like I like how like he is quite similar to Doctor Strange, in a sense, because it's the same sort of like power, or because he's making it up, it's the same sort of thing. So like it's believable because we've seen a character who does a similar thing, so we believe it as an audience, and also the characters within this film would believe it because it's quite similar to something they've already seen.
Yes, and also I also like the fact that they're showing yet another example of Tony's technology in the wrong hands.
Yeah, I want to liken that to my image for this review,
because that was one of my favorite things about the Iron Man films and also Age of Ultron as well, was just how dangerous his technology is when it gets out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that a lot.
I do want to roll that back to all the little clips of previous movies we've seen as well. It was really cool to see Tony Stark built this in a cave with a box of scraps once more on the big screen.
Yeah, with Obadiah Stane and the guy who is actually in Iron Man, the same actor from Iron Man.
Yeah,
who Obadiah Stane yells at is in this film, and that's really really funny. Mysterio's like that reveal right after Peter walked up the bar, that sort of turn of the illusions, and Jake Gyllenhaal's massive smile is so creepy and great. I love it, and his whole like explanation of what he like did is really really cool and nicely done. Actually, there's a nice little thing. I think, don't know if you picked this up, Connor, but one of the Mysterio followers, one of the actresses in that scene is Ida Scott from Impossible Planet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, same actress. I recognized her the second time on my viewing. I had to make sure if it's the same person. I think it's the one who is doing the cape. I think she's one of the one who gets like shouted out by Mysterio. So I'm like, oh, that's actually quite cool. Yeah. But the whole thing I love with Mysterio, he's really, really cool. I think he's a really great villain.
And going back to what you were saying about Obadiah Stane, the fact that this film, the last film of Phase 3, ties back to the first film of Phase 1, it really makes this a nice package. The fact that all this payoff, the fact that a film from 2008 ties directly into a film from 2019.
Yeah, 11 years later, yeah.
Yeah. It's really, really cool, and it's really nicely done, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because obviously it's been a long time since I've seen it now, like probably March or February. I forgot how intense Jeff Bridges was in that film.
Yeah.
It's really cool. It's really cool, and I think Mysterio is like definitely one of the best MCU villains. I think just in terms of performance he is, and also like Mysterio as a character, how unstable he is very cool to watch. I very much enjoy his performance.
I was very pleased with the first illusion sequence, because that had like 1,000 different references to like different Spider-Man comic book covers, and I was just like, holy shit, like that's from this one. Oh my god, that's from this one, and it was like they were all sequential as well. So it like I think it shows he's like choking out MJ, and he's just like, you don't know if this is real or not, do you? And he's just like, oh shit. I was like, oh yo, that's from a comic book cover, and then I think it has like Peter in the like Hall of Mirrors, and he's looking around, and then they all pile on
Yeah.
each other. I was like, holy shit, that's also from another comic. And then it has like the army of Mysterios walking. I was like, shit, another one. And then it has Spider-Man in that like massive snow globe, and he's just like laying there. I was like, fucking it, that's like 4 or 5 different comic book cover references in one movie. Jesus Christ. I
That
was
whole
super pleased with
sequence
that.
is so nicely done. It's a great sequence, and it's one of my favorite sequences in the MCU. How
Yeah.
nicely done
Yeah.
it is, and I love the scene within that, where Peter is teleported to a graveyard, and Beck says, "If you did something right, maybe Tony would still be alive." And you get that silence for a good like 3 seconds to feel the impact of that line, how that would affect Peter as a character. It's really, really cool and really nicely done.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I feel like Mysterio is a highlight of this film, probably the highlight, honestly, is because unlike the rest of the film, he's not a joke.
No.
He's a
No.
very serious character. Entertaining, of course, but he is so powerful with how he uses not only his deception, but also just the fact that this guy, like, he's saying, I don't want to have to kill him, but the fact that he is willing to kill a 16-year-old because of
Yeah.
his just
Multiple 16-year-olds by the end of the film.
yeah, like the fact that he's willing to commit a massacre on
Yeah.
what you could technically count as children, is so messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I think
I
a
think
lot of Spider-Man villains are like that too. Like it's like, I don't want to have to do this, but if I will, I'm not going to hesitate.
yeah. I love how like when we get that turn and we get the final act with Mysterio, how like unstable he is and how like not in a sense like goofy, but like you see like how much of like a bullshitter he is from his acting, but like how unstable he is as well. When he's like fire all the drones, even though his safety is at risk. How much he wants to get rid of Pierre because he wants to keep up with his illusion of him being a superhero. It's really really cool to see, and Jake Gyllenhaal does a great job. It's fantastic.
That scene in the bar when like Peter leaves and he has that smile, that's the point in the film for me where it started to pick up, and I was like, oh shit, here we
Yeah,
go.
same
Here's
for
the
me.
Spider-Man part, Like everything before that, I was like, okay, this is a little slow.
Yeah.
But once you like that villain the movie is like, here's your villain, here's your real villain. That's when the movie starts to pick up, and it's like, okay, we have a villain, we have got our hero from like the first minute. Now we can get started.
Yeah,
I think
are
the
there,
execution of Mysterio is done really well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are there people that are out there that are annoyed that it's not actually a multiverse? It's just some like fake effects.
Not from what I've seen. I don't think anyone has had that criticism. I think I would say that the only criticism I have of it is that it is predictable, but there's nothing wrong with that if it's executed really well, and I think it is. But I will say that it is quite predictable. Like I think a lot of people were like, "Yeah, Mysterio is not. He's making all this stuff up. He's not actually a superhero." So
Yeah, I was kind of, me and like I'm sure billions others online were like, "Oh yeah, he's faking it. He's that's the villain right there. You've seen the villain." So when it was revealed, I'm sure like I think because that's probably about halfway through the film, I was almost relieved because Gyllenhaal's performance like performance within performance. How he's like, my planet was killed by these elementals, blah blah blah. I was kind of like, oh shit, maybe he's telling the truth. And then when you get the bar scene, I was like, that's what I was waiting for.
Mm.
And from what I've seen, I haven't seen anyone who's kind of like, oh, there's no multiverse.
Because the thing is, right, even though he faked the multiverse whole thing, that doesn't mean that the multiverse doesn't exist. They totally
Yeah,
at any
exactly.
point could just be like, no, there is a multiverse.
Yeah.
But there's like, that is because we've seen that because of the time travel in Endgame, how there are multiple universes that can be created and not affect the ones you return to. There's still a multiverse. So it doesn't affect me at all that he faked it. Like,
No.
it doesn't bother me.
Mm.
Because they could literally just bring it up in Phase 4.
Yeah.
So
I feel like Mysterio is one of the best MCU villains we've had.
I would say so. I would say I prefer Vulture, I think, just a tad.
Yeah,
But I still
I
think
agree.
Mysterio is really... Jake Gyllenhaal is really good at Mysterio. And I would say almost perfect casting. Because he just feels like Mysterio. And I'm glad that Mysterio has the biggest impact on the MCU going forward. Because he reveals at the end, in the first post-credit scene, that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Like, no matter what happens, he has had the biggest impact on Spider-Man of any character because he is the one who reveals who he is to the entire world.
I do want to, because when this movie finished, right?
Yeah.
I kind of sat there and went, yeah, everything I thought would happen happened. So I'm cool with that, you know. Nothing big. I didn't, and I was like, we just had Endgame, so I'm cool with there not being nothing too massive. I can wait for Phase 4. I'm not too stoked about that. But then that first post-credit scene rolled around, and I went, oh fuck, okay.
Yeah, we'll get more.
That's probably
We'll get more into
my
that scene.
favorite. That's probably my favorite post-credit scene in the entire MCU.
I was going to say that, but we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
No, we will further in depth.
Don't you worry. Don't you worry. We will get to that scene. But yeah, Mysterio was definitely a highlight, and if it wasn't for him, like if this film had like a more generic villain, I feel like it would suffer.
Oh yeah, it would.
There's that old
100%.
saying, the hero is only as good as his villain. So there you go. In this case, the
whilst
movie
we have
is
whilst we have our criticisms of Homecoming and Far From Home, particularly Peter Parker's character, the villains in both films are outstanding.
Yeah.
yes.
Like, we've talked a lot. I think as Homecoming and Far From Home, we've had a lot of negatives to say, but we still really, really like these films.
Yeah,
I really like this
Absolutely.
film. I prefer this to
Yeah.
Homecoming, and it is like one of my mostly more positive MCU films. Like,
Yeah.
it's still really, really good.
yeah. Our criticisms of it come from a more detailed passion, as opposed to something, like say, like, I don't know, like Thor, where it's like, oh, the characters are off and the direction's off and it's weirdly paced. It's not, but it's like it's flawed, but it's not particularly interesting to talk about because it's just a little bit off. Whereas with this film, it's a really good film, but the problems are fundamentals to Spider-Man, and we are in detail about what we criticize about them.
Like, the problems, it's like I said, it's more my negatives are to do with the MCU Spider-Man as a whole that this film confirms for me, really, rather than the film specifically itself.
Yeah.
There are still negatives within the film I have, but there's still loads of positives about this film that I really love. And this is definitely like a great MCU film, I would say.
Yeah, but it could have been even better.
It could have been great.
It
could have been the best MCU film if it ran with the ideas that it could have potentially had. It just feels that it doesn't run with it as much as I want it to.
utilize the character's development as much as the Sam Raimi films did. I feel like this could, like, this film, if you add that into it and make it less of a joke and more of a story, again, like you said, this could be one of the best MCU films.
It could have beat Spider-Man 2
for sure.
for me. Like, it could have, if it didn't feel so much as like a forced comedy like it is. If it ran with the character development that it had in its hands but didn't do anything with.
Yeah.
And it's a real shame. But still a really, really great film.
Whereas you look at something like Captain America the Winter Soldier, which sacrifices having a quippy, entertaining film to tell a proper story. I think that is what sets it above a lot of the other MCU films, like that film specifically, Winter Soldier, as a single film. Because a lot of the others that I have ranked above it are like the group films. But when it comes to singular films, like in terms of one based around one superhero and his story, I think Winter Soldier is like the definite article of that in the MCU. And again, it's because it goes for substance over style.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like there are elements to these Spider-Man films that go for style over substance.
Yeah, you'd be right there. Absolutely.
Yeah. So basically what they need to do is they need to have the Russos do a Spider-Man film.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, please.
It'll probably never happen, but, if it ever happened, that would be great.
They said it would never happen about something else in this film, but then it happened and everyone...
we'll get to that.
Great rejoicing cheer of positivity.
Yeah.
Like, it's expensive, but that's just me being, I like to do that sometimes, and it's probably a mistake because that always sets the bar too high. Anyway, that's just never going to happen. Because Maria, and she's mainly just there to be an addition to Nick Fury as well. So we'll talk about it together.
She doesn't do anything. She doesn't really do anything.
Yeah.
Oh, and Nick
she's
Fury.
One of the, honestly, she's one of the weirdest MCU characters ever, and she's in a lot of films.
She's in a lot of films, and she doesn't do anything.
And I think
it's weird. I think it was Age of Ultron. I was like, because she was in one of the main trailers, and people were like, "Oh shit, she's gonna get some development," and they're like, "Nah."
Yeah, like the one scene in the entire MCU where she actually gets some character is Tony's party.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only scene. Everything else she's in, Avengers, in Infinity War, whatever, she's just non-existent.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't understand why. I don't understand why they hired an actress that's known for comedy for a role so serious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she's for me, it was successful. The kind of transition from a comedy TV show like How I Met Your Mother into this serious role. But that's most likely because How I Met Your Mother finished years ago, before she even kind of came on screen in the MCU. So for me, I was like, well, that character is gone. They came, they went, the series is over, whatever.
But yeah, she doesn't do anything. But Nick Fury has a lot of conversations with Peter, sort of discussing like, is he going to be able to step up? Does he actually want to step up? Which things are, I think, if they had more of that within just Peter within the film, not just to do with Nick Fury, it would have been really cool. It would have been really nice to see Peter tormented between, like, does he really want to have this high school plan that he has all planned out, or does he feel like he needs to do this because if he doesn't, there are people that are going to get hurt?
Yeah, so, I like a lot of that stuff from Nick Fury, but unfortunately, I think, and this is not a fault of this film, For me, ever since I saw Captain Marvel, Nick Fury, I just can't take seriously. Because Captain Marvel just completely fucking ruins everything for him.
I want to digress on that because for this film, like again, Nick Fury was a big part of the trailer.
Yeah.
And he has a very funny haha one-liner where he goes, "Bitch, please, you've been to space." When I saw that in the trailer, I went, "Uh-oh. Oh no, they turned him into a comedy." And then this film kept doing that, and me personally, I was like, I'm not a fan. Why? What have you done? Why did you do that? Right? And then the second end credit scene, it's revealed, oh, surprise, it's not Nick Fury, it's a Skrull. And I went, oh yeah,
It's funny.
I
It's
would have
funny
thought so because he's out of character the whole film. You know, he's like even Beck says something and he goes, "That's the biggest load of bullshit." I'm like, "That's not Nick Fury. He doesn't say shit like that. Get him out of here. Who is this guy?" You know. And then that scene happened, and I was like, "Okay, good. I can tell the real Nick Fury from a fucking Skrull. That's good." And then I went, "Oh shit, they're gonna do something with Skrulls, and Captain Marvel wasn't good. This is not great. This is not good at all."
It's funny because we were talking about how the first post-credit scene is like one of the best, if not the best.
Yeah.
Whereas like this, I feel like the second one is one of the worst.
I wouldn't say one of the worst. I'd just say it's like
it.
I just say it falls flat for the film, and two, behind the first you can't top that first post-credit scene.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's better than fucking Thor kissing his wife that's not Natalie Portman. It's better than that.
It's a lot better than the cat throwing up the fucking Tesseract.
Oh, God.
Yeah. But
which means
just,
nothing.
For me, it was like, oh, they're Skrulls, and I'm like, yeah, of course that wasn't Nick Fury. The whole movie, that wasn't him. This Nick Fury in this movie was too stupid and too haha funny for not my Nick Fury.
But yeah, there was potential there, but like a lot of the characters in this film, he was very quickly, once the exposition parts were over, he was very quickly turned into a comedy character. Yeah. And the fact that he was a Skrull this whole time, kind of, I feel like that would make the film less rewatchable. And also the fact that the one thing that is dominating about his visual appearance is his eye patch. And because I've seen Captain Marvel, I know that it's because he was scratched by a fucking cat.
There was a scene in this film where there's like a close-up of him, and I was like, yeah, that was a cat.
Yeah, and actually...
That wasn't a battle, that was a fucking cat.
Yeah, now I don't know if they had this in previous films, but I noticed around his eye patch, it looked like a cat scratch.
Yeah, I did notice that too. I believe they've made it look quote unquote better. It looks more like a cat scratch now. It doesn't look better. It just looks like an actual cat scratch rather than, unnamed.
I just can't believe how much it was teased in Winter Soldier about his eye and what happened and like how it has significance.
Last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye.
It was a cat. Spoilers.
Yeah. So I don't know why Kevin thought that was it.
That's sort of frozen for me.
Yeah, same. I can hear you guys, but
yeah, I don't have anything going on, but it's completely frozen.
I should be able to feel his presence because. Oh, sorry. Did you hear what I was saying?
Yeah, you've just unfroze. You've been frozen for like a couple of seconds there.
Yeah, you were frozen a good deal.
Oh, sorry. It's his poor connection. No, but my Wi-Fi is okay, so I don't think there's a problem. What was I going to say? So
I think you mentioned Kevin Feige.
Yeah, I was talking about like I don't understand why he approved the idea that it being a cat scratch, and it's like and that affects this film for me because whenever I look at him, I just think of Captain Marvel.
Yeah. What I'm hoping happens, right? Because obviously they definitely had this before. Thor: The Dark World probably came out and people were like, what are they doing? What are they doing at Marvel? A bunch of idiots. But then, now we have Endgame and we're like, it's Jesus' second coming. So I honestly, I have a very strong belief in Kevin Feige. Um, After Endgame, after Far From Home, they still haven't let me down for the most part. Um, I'm curious to see where this goes, where they're taking Skrulls. I just think for now, because the only other time I've seen them is in a film where I just wasn't that interested, to be honest, and it was pretty slow and boring, and I was like, okay, yeah, I get it. She's a powerful woman, whatever. I'm interested to see where they take this group of characters, right? And I hope to God they'll take the Endgame route and disconnect those characters from Captain Marvel.
Yeah, well, I mean, Adam says he's hyped for it because they're a big part of the comics.
Yeah, well, because I still haven't read those comics. I know that they're big in the comics and that's a good comic book. I'm also aware that the Fantastic Four are there too. So, Marvel, come on, bring the four, please. Do it. Hurry up. We're waiting.
Yeah. But yeah, anything else we want to say about Nick Fury or Maria Hill?
There's not really much else to say.
All right, then. So now we'll move on to the director of the new Lion King film, obviously, Happy Hogan.
Has really one really good scene with Peter just before the third act commences, but then other than that is sort of used for comedy purposes.
Yeah, just like Homecoming.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like the scene with him and Peter in the plane is really, really good, and I really like it. The problem I have with that scene, though, is that he says to Peter that you're not going to be the next Iron Man. It's because what I take from that is that people are saying, and the whole thing with this film is like, who is going to be the next Iron Man? Who is going to be the next Iron Man? And Peter is like, I don't think I can do it. And Hogan's like, no, you're not going to be Iron Man. You're going to be Spider Man. But then after that, we get a call back to the beginning of Iron Man with the song, and also Peter making his suit like Iron Man. So what is this film going for? Is it saying that he is just naturally going to become like Iron Man, or is he meant to be his own thing? I don't know what you're trying to say.
Yeah,
You're giving me conflicted things here.
Well, because with the end credit, the fantastic end credit scene, it's very reminiscent of the end of Iron Man, where everyone's like, oh shit, that's who Spider-Man is. It's like, choose a path, please.
Yeah. Yeah, and in a lot of ways, Homecoming and Far From Home do feel like Iron Man spin-off films.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's actually a description of it.
What I really hope for this, because it's like technically, right, a duology, the two MCU for Spider-Man films. I hope the third one takes away, and it's like, right, he's dead. We've already had a film establishing that he's gone. Now it's purely.
It'll be revealed that it wasn't Thanos that led to his death. It was actually the Sandman.
Oh Jesus Christ!
And also Venom, because Abbey
no! Don't do that ever. You come anywhere near my third MCU
if it's going to be Venom, it's going to be Tom
slit your
Hardy.
throat.
If it's going to be Venom, it's going to be Tom Hardy. So, I mean, you'll have that.
Imagine Tom Holland doing those scenes in Spider-Man 3, like the emo scenes.
Oh god, it'd be really. It would. That's when it would have been. That's when it would have been bad, because I think that's good because it makes sense for because it's about Peter being like, oh, I think this is cool because of the symbiote. So, but if it was Tom Holland, it'd be really weird.
Yeah, I think the main problem with that is that, like, I don't know, their approach to being awkward is so different. Like, they're almost completely different characters.
Like, because awkward for Tom Holland makes him look so adorable. Awkward for Tobey Maguire, people are like, oh, he's a terrible actor. He doesn't. It's not natural. Because that's what I get from it. That's what everyone else says. So I'm like, no, that sort of is how awkwardness is kind of like.
It's like if you've been at school, you turn around and look in your classroom, you'll find someone that's like Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And that's why he's relatable, because he's real.
It's almost as if it's realistic. I don't know. Such a novel concept.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I forgot what characters we were over on. Were we on like Nick Fury?
Happy Hogan. Happy Hogan.
Oh, Happy Hogan, yeah. But yeah, he's in that one scene. He's good, and I like the talk. I just had the problem with like, is he meant to be the next Iron Man or not? You're giving me conflicted stuff here, and then everything else is sort of comedic stuff with Aunt May, which I'm fine with, but I'd rather it wouldn't be in the film. Because I'd like Aunt May to actually mean something.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so the whole point of, like, they're like, oh, well, so Happy Hogan is going to be like this sort of support mechanism for Spider-Man. But what else can we do with him? I don't know. Let's have him have a romance with Aunt May.
But then at the end, isn't a romance according to Aunt May. So I'm like, okay.
And also, is it me or does Aunt May like look younger in this film than she did in the last ones?
Yes, she did, and it was very odd. Why?
I find it because in Civil War and Homecoming, it was slightly uncomfortable.
You could see she was old, but it was still kind of like I'm the like hot old, and it's
it was slightly uncomfortable. But with this one, she's literally used as a sex symbol, and I find that so bizarre.
Yeah,
and again, like I said, like it worked for a lot of people for comedic value, because it's like Happy Hogan and Aunt May as a couple is a funny thing. But what is the point of it? Like, Aunt May is such a nothing character in these films.
Yeah.
She's literally just there to be a MILF. And also, I don't know if I said this in the Civil War trivia or Homecoming, but I found out, I can't remember when, but the actress who plays her used to date Robert Downey Jr.
Yes,
oh, yeah, that was in the trivia. Yeah.
Right, yeah. It's pretty funny. But yeah, I don't know, like, I know that they wanted to do something different with Aunt May than they did from the other films, but I just don't get why they had to do this with her. It just feels weird. The fact that Spider-Man's carer doesn't give a rat's ass about her dead husband, and she's just there to be sex appeal for one of the characters. Like,
I think that's another kind of thing where the MCU's like, Uncle Ben, who's that?
Yeah, it just felt like a sitcom, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine this film with canned laughter. That would,
I couldn't watch it. I'd get like half an hour in, I'd be like, see ya. Going home.
Yeah. But yeah, anything else to say about Happy Hogan and Aunt May?
Not much else.
There was a scene, the scene where he, at the very end of the film, where he's like, oh, we need to start being truthful, right? And he ends up saying, oh, are you guys dating? I thought he was going to say, like, I want to tell the world that I am Spider-Man, and it was going to be like a scene like the end of Iron Man 1. I thought that was him saying that to them, like, I want you guys to tell me whether or not I should do this. But it just turned out as a fucking joke. It was just like, are you guys dating? And again, it's like, it's one of those, and maybe I'm just expecting way too much from this film, but it was a subversive moment where I was just like,
that was the subversion. Like, he was going to say, I think the world should know, or the truth should come out. But no, then it was like,
you're expecting something big, and it's like, oh, it's just these two, ha ha ha, and it's like, don't.
Yeah,
please.
And they were going for the whole thing of like, is he going to become the next Iron Man? It would have been quite poetic for him to go out and say that to the world. Obviously, I prefer what we ended up getting in the post-credit scene. I do prefer that. But in that moment when I was watching that scene, that's what I was thinking. And then it just turned out to be a joke.
Yeah.
And that scene for me really sums up a lot of the problems I have with this film.
Yeah.
Is that there is potential for this film to be a great Spider-Man film, but they just squash it multiple times for a laugh.
Yeah.
Should we move on to the next character?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Wow. We've already sort of brought him up before, but it's Ned Leeds.
I mentioned it quite a bit how his character doesn't matter in this film. Unlike Homecoming, where he is literally his whole arc is being the guy in the chair, in this he doesn't do anything.
Yeah, Anthony, what do you think of Ned Leeds?
I was thoroughly disappointed because in Homecoming he was one of my favorite parts, and in this film they're like, "Hey, let's have a one-liner joke." She hates him. They're off the plane. Oh, they're in love. Wow, and that's the whole joke. And then it just goes absolutely nowhere. And then at the end of the film, it's like, "Oh, we broke up."
Yeah.
Oh,
Don't get me
and
wrong.
it's
There are
like,
funny
what?
moments within that. There are funny moments, but it doesn't serve anything else.
I think the big takeaway is like in Homecoming. In my opinion, everything with Ned Leeds is pretty humorous. It's pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's just a funny dude in Homecoming. And in this one, they're like, "Hey, let's have him, like date this relatively good-looking girl for like, their age." And like when it first
For a
happened,
week.
it's like, yeah, it's like, haha, okay, where's it going? And it's like, oh, that was the joke. That's going to be the joke for the whole movie.
What its purpose is for comic relief, but if you don't laugh at least like 60% of the jokes, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can have purely comic relief characters, but if they don't work almost most of the movie, then it isn't worth it and it doesn't work.
See Darcy from Dark World.
And I definitely don't think this was the intention at all. But the fact that he is so caricatured in this film, sometimes it even makes him come across like an asshole.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying when I mean that? Like, because like it's really funny, but in the situations that they're in, because he's constantly joking all the time, it's like he never fucking takes anything seriously, and it's
Yeah.
almost detrimental to his character.
Again, like the one scene I thought he was bearable in was right at the end when Peter's like, I'm gonna go, save the city, and he's with him and MJ, and MJ's like, I know and he's like, oh yo, like so do I. We're in the club now.
I
I
knew
thought that was like
longer.
the one. Yeah, I knew longer. I thought that was like the one like relatively funny thing compared to everything else he has to say or has to joke about.
Yeah, it just I just find it odd that there's scenes where it's like quite serious. Like for example, like Peter Parker. I mean, obviously, I talked about how it's not exactly ideal, but Peter Parker is going through quite an emotional state. Like, obviously, at the start of the film, it's more just like, hey, we're just going to have a plan. But
Yeah.
over the course of the film, it develops to the point where Peter Parker is now anxious about MJ because of, it's becoming quite complicated. But Ned doesn't
Yeah.
see that, and he still makes a fucking joke out of it.
Yeah.
I don't
it's like,
see like I don't think that the Ned from Homecoming would have been like that.
No.
And it doesn't make him seem like a very either not smart or just not a very good friend. The fact
Well,
that
that-
he's looking at Peter Parker's situation, and also Ned knows that he's Spider-Man, so Ned knows
Yeah.
that this is tough for him. And
Yeah.
yet, like when Peter's like, I don't know what to do about MJ. This is such a complicated situation. He's just like, oh well, what me and my girlfriend do is we just do this, and it's like, fuck off. It's not. It's just
Yeah.
not on. I wish that amongst all this comedy, there was moments with Ned where he actually took it seriously.
Yeah.
There's also like the scene on the bus where he puts on the glasses. He puts on Edith. I thought that scene would have been a lot better if Ned was with him and Ned was kind of going like, "Holy shit, what do they do?" But of course, he's over there with his girlfriend. That's the whole arc, his arc in this movie. It's a pointless little shitty arc.
Yeah, and what was I gonna say? I forgot. It was something important too. Damn. But yeah, basically that. Um, yeah. So are we gonna move on from Ned?
Yeah,
Yep.
because I don't really have that much else to say.
Right. So we've got. I believe that these are the like teachers,
Yeah.
Roger Harrington and Julius Dell.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like they were just there for comedy.
Yeah.
I
The
hated Julius Dell so
JB
much.
Smooth, JB Smooth, who's the new teacher, is literally brand new character, but doesn't do anything other than do comedy bits, which weren't that funny. And then you have
Yeah.
the teacher from Homecoming. While in Homecoming, I think all his comedy stuff was actually really, really funny. In this, it only works 50% of the time. The stuff with like the camera falling into the sea was way too
Yeah.
long,
Yeah.
and the only parts where I thought, "Oh, that's quite funny," is the one where he talks about his wife faking snapping away to be with someone from
Yeah,
a
that
hiking
was
class.
fucking
Like that
great.
was funny. That was really funny.
Well, I
But
think
then,
that,
other than that,
honestly,
there wasn't much else.
I think it's because all of the humor that had to do with the snap in this film, it was something that we'd never seen before because it's quite a creative
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So
Like
it
there's
feels
different scenarios, like people like faking that they died in the snap and stuff like that. It's like
Yeah.
it is quite funny.
yeah. I remember what I was going to say about Ned. So one of my least favorite scenes in the film is like when Nick Fury's trying to explain to Peter Parker what's going on, and it's interrupted by Ned's like snoring.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cringeworthy and just not funny
Mm.
at all. It was like the
I think that's a good example of what this movie is. It like tries to take itself seriously, and then it's immediately interrupted by a joke, and usually they're not too great. And it's like, okay, continue, please. I want to,
What's really bad about that scene, while the line that Nick Fury says, like, if someone interrupts me again, you and I are going to go to another funeral. Now, that's a very funny line. I like that line. It was quite funny. But the film doesn't follow the rule of three, where it does it twice and then it does it a third time. It does it 4 times. You have Ned snoring, the teacher in the doorway. You have Betty then knocking on the door, and then the other teacher knocking on the door. And then that's like, it's doing it way too much. It's taking too much time. Like,
yeah.
you should stick to the fundamental rules of filmmaking. Rule of three is such an important rule.
Mm.
Well, not a rule, but it's an important way of making films where it
Well, it's
doesn't
such
feel
a
like it
small
drags.
little detail, but it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, exactly. And it feels like as an example of the film not understanding how to properly construct a joke, but just like, hey, this would be funny. Let's do it. Let's just say, hey, he keeps interrupting him, but not setting a limit to themselves. So it just feels like, okay, you're not really concentrating on the comedic bit. You'd be like, oh, that'd be funny. Let's do that. So come on, you should be following simple filmmaking 101, because that's what it is. That is stuff when you do a course in film, they teach you that in the first month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether that be a university or just a college or a course or something like that. They teach you that in the first month.
Yes. Now, we also had some other side characters like Flash Thompson.
Yeah. Again, like I mentioned in the beginning of the review, he doesn't do anything for the plot. It's just there for comedy. And while there's a side thing where if you really pay attention a lot, there are a couple bits where he talks about his family. Like at the end of the film, he talks to his butler, like, so mum couldn't make it. So it's like, I think at some point where Edith is like scanning his phone, you can see like something to do with his parents. So, but other than that, he
It's
doesn't do
so
anything.
under the radar, though. It's completely
Yeah.
supplemental.
Yeah.
It's a
And
very kind of like small, but
Yeah.
pretty important little plot.
Yeah, it
But
doesn't
like
really.
at the end of the film, when I saw that happen, I had to remind myself what that was about because I forgot.
Yeah.
Because that's why he's live streaming, is because like he wants to feel important, and that's what they do in like in the cell where Happy Hogan is like, if you didn't do those stupid videos, then Spider-Man would have never found you. It's like, and that's quite a bit of a funny bit for Flash, but then other than that, it doesn't get much else. They're like all of the kids on the school trip on this vacation, they're for comedy and nothing else.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what Flash Thompson thinks when he in the next film when he's like realizes that Peter
Yeah,
Parker is Spider-Man.
like because in these last two films he talks about why Spider-Man is really cool and he likes Spider-Man a lot, and then makes fun of Peter because that's quite funny. So now that'll be interesting to actually develop him as a character, finding out that Peter is Spider-Man. You'd be like, well, I've been making fun of this kid. I've been making of my idol, basically someone who I want to become a better person because of. So that will be interesting going into the third film. So I hope they develop on that. Otherwise, it's again another wasted potential.
Uh, Anthony, did you see Callum freeze for a bit there?
No, did you not hear what I said?
I heard what you said, but it was very glitchy.
Okay, if just to say again, I hope that because of what they did with Flash in this film, talking about Spider-Man, hopefully in the next film, now that he finds out that his idol was Peter, the guy he's bullying, let's hope they can develop him as a character from that and actually make him meaningful as a character, someone that we
Rather
care
than
about.
like write him off as another joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Anthony, is it your internet that's causing the lag?
I'm not too sure because my internet seems to be running okay since
Okay.
we've started this call. So
Mm. Oh, I think Connor's frozen for me.
yeah, he's frozen for me as well.
Bloody internet.
And he's gone. He'll be back, I'm sure.
It's fine. He can just edit this together, hopefully, because it seems like
Yeah.
he might have to.
Yeah. Hopefully it's not like too long of a
I
pause.
I can hear you.
Oh, there it is.
Okay.
Oh, can you? Yeah.
So what was it? My internet? Was it my internet that was the problem?
I don't
'Cause
know.
you-
It just seems like you keep freezing a bit.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I was just thinking because that's why I asked you. Can you both hear each other fine?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
can hear Anthony fine.
Yeah. I can hear
Okay.
Callum pretty good too.
Right. Because there was a point where both of you, so I assumed it was my internet.
Right.
And also, Anthony, you keep turning your mic off for some reason, then turning it back
Yeah.
on.
Because I keep coughing. I don't want to cough into the mic.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm
Anyway.
sick.
So
Yeah,
am
you
I.
might just have to edit this one together a bit.
Maybe. Right. So, are we done talking about other
Flash.
side characters in the film, like Flash?
Yeah, we got Flash, and then you got Betty, who is obviously with Ned, and then it's just sort of again like Ned, a bit of just used for comedic purposes. Yeah, but that's pretty much it. And then you got
Alright.
Brad as well, who's in this love triangle.
Yeah, I just thought he was such a useless character,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, I did think that the bit where like Peter gets his new suit and that woman's like, take your clothes off. I thought that was pretty funny. I think just a sort of shock of it, I think, as well. But other than that,
Yeah.
there wasn't that much else because like Peter sends a drone on him, and it feels like that's something out of like a Disney film. That in a spy Disney film, that would be like, oh, accidentally sent his drone on someone.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of this film that feels a bit Disney.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. There is.
I mean, obviously Zendaya is from Disney.
Yeah. I'm not sure as well if it was because I said this before, I'm not sure if it was the director John Watts like, oh, just make it up, or it was him like, well, you have experience with Disney stuff, so let's try mix a little bit of that in.
Yeah, it just didn't work for me, that kind of comedy. It feels very forced and staged. And unlike the more sort of ad-libby comedy of other MCU films. Right, I think it's now time for us to move on to the big one.
Yes, please. Let's go.
So, the post-credit scene of this film, I think, is so monumental in so many ways, and I would say you could argue that it's the best one we've had.
Yes.
Like, obviously, the one from Iron Man 1 with Nick Fury is iconic, but if you're talking about, like, there's so many things that this scene does. The fact that it's obviously it's following up the whole like Spider-Man MJ thing, and then you've got another layer to Mysterio. The fact that he died, but he managed to get the last laugh before he died.
I don't think he's dead, honestly, but that's just me.
All right, well, whatever.
We'll find out, maybe.
But at this point, that's what it's suggesting. The fact that before he died, he got the last laugh. And then, of course, the return of the incredible J. Jonah Jameson. Not only is this like some of the best fan service I've ever seen in my life, but it's not just that. Like, it actually has so much significance. Because the one thing that J. Jonah Jameson wanted to do in the Sam Raimi films was expose Spider-Man as a vigilante and a criminal. And he finally did it. That post-credit scene for me is probably as close to perfection as it gets. Would you agree with me on that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I remember when I first watched the film when it released, and I was happy just before when the first credit sequence came up. We finally get to see Spider-Man swing through New York City. Like, this is the first time since Amazing Spider-Man 2, so like 2014, around that time, that we've seen Spider-Man swing across New York, building to building, skyscraper to skyscraper, which is so satisfying to see. But then when we get to the post-credit scene and he's watching the news, right, on the big screen, and when they say Daily Bugle and it cuts to J.K. Simmons, my face was just in awe. I had my eyes bulged out and my mouth wide open in shock of what I was seeing, and I could not even begin to imagine what the hell is happening. Why is J.K. Simmons in this film? But it was so great because he jumps back into the role like that. Like, as soon as he jumps back on screen, he is J. Jonah Jameson straight away. But it's a different version of him where he's like the version from Spider-Man PS4. If anyone's played that, because he is like a online show talking about how Spider-Man's a menace.
Like a controversial clickbait show.
If it's the Alex Jones universe of J. Jonah Jameson, which is bloody great. It's done so well.
And the fact that they got J.K. Simmons to play the role is so satisfying, because no one else can play that character in any incarnation. Because obviously this Jameson's different from the first one, but you can't have a different actor play that character. Because in any incarnation, J.K. Simmons is the only...
He's frozen out again.
Oh, there we go. No, yeah. Just say again.
Oh, did you hear what I said?
He froze out a bit.
You just got there. So
okay, I was saying that J.K. Simmons is the only person that can play that character, regardless of which incarnation.
Yeah, regardless, because he is literally perfect casting for me, I think. And he, like I said, he slips back into the role like instantly. So it's so great to see him like back as that character and feel so natural back into the role. And I love not only we get that though, we get Mysterio revealing that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. We get a double whammy, basically. And Peter's reaction is very justified, where he's just like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah,
And
and
then
that
it cuts.
and like obviously we said like, and at the end of Homecoming, it's a joke that Aunt May says that when she finds out he's Spider-Man. But the fact that this mirrors that as well.
But it would
Yeah.
actually mean something.
Yeah.
Well, you'd
Like,
hope so.
yeah. That if they have to run with it. If they don't, it will be the
Yeah, no,
biggest wasted potential in any
Yeah.
in like any Marvel film for me.
So obviously, like, this film finished, and I was sitting there with my dad, and I looked at him. I said, "Yeah, that's about all I expected from this film. Mysterio was the bad guy, and blah blah blah. Yeah, I could see that coming. Anyone could see that coming. And then you get the post credits, and it's like, oh, very nice. He's swinging in New York. Finally, cool, awesome. That's great. He sits down on the lamppost. We have shocking footage from, the blah blah blah. It's people may want to look away, and you have, Mysterio, like Spider-Man. He's gonna kill me, and you have the same scene from earlier on at a different view, at a different angle, which I love in film when they kind of do the same scene from a different point. Very good. And then those words came on the screen, dailybugle.net or whatever it was. And I looked at my dad. I said, no, they didn't. No, you didn't, Marvel. No, they did. It was him, the godlike being of these Spider-Man, just any Spider-Man media. Himself, J.K. Simmons. He was there. He was angry, but not too angry, because they had Spider-Man on film being a quote-unquote criminal, and they had his identity revealed. I myself, I stood up and I did a victory lap of the cinema I was in. Very easy, because everyone had left. And then I sat back down. And
Wait, everyone fucking left and they didn't see that scene.
The fools. They were idiots. They all left, and it was just me.
Well, they've never watched
father.
a Marvel film before.
So I had, I believe it was a child's birthday party, maybe 8 or 9 years old. They are actually pretty good during the film, I will say. But they all left, and it was me and my dad, and then these 3 dudes around my age behind us. So that scene finished, I got up and I did a victory lap, because they did it. I said in the Spider-Man 2 or the Spider-Man 3 review, I said, if Marvel can pull this off, if they can pull that out of their ass, get enough money or whatever, it's going to be great. And it was. It was fantastic. Victory has never tasted so great.
Yeah, it was extraordinary to have him back.
Brilliant.
Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. Definitely, for me, the best MCU post-credit scene.
Yes.
Because of how much, not only does it mean for audiences, but what it means for the future of the MCU and also Spider-Man. It can go anywhere, and it has so much potential.
Yeah, and I thought nothing would top the first one from Iron Man, with like Nick Fury appearing and saying, like, I want to start the Avengers. Like, because like that was one that people were like, yeah, that's never going to get topped.
Yeah.
And then they fucking did it. They brought back J. Jonah Jameson, and it was amazing.
Oh man.
Like my entire theater like gasped when he got on screen.
Yeah, same here.
And then like after the second post-credit scene, like one guy yelled out, "What the fuck?"
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what it is. It's like, oh, there was Skrulls. Whoa, and it's like, oh, okay.
But I don't understand why. What in what world it's ideal to follow up J. Jonah Jameson exposing Spider-Man with Skrulls.
Yeah. You don't do that again, though. That's I believe Kevin Feige has another. He's got a good vision in mind, right? They're gonna do like Skrull War or whatever that event is called. The invasion. That's what it's called. Invasion. Um, I feel like that's what they're building up to. I hope that I don't know because I haven't read that comic. I don't know if it's good or bad. Hopefully they pull it off. That's what I'll say.
But yeah, I don't know what else to say. It was just amazing. J. Jonah Jameson is back.
It was pretty great.
It's like the one thing.
12
like
years since we've seen him on screen.
We've been saying this in the reviews. It's the one thing that we wanted the MCU to do.
Absolutely.
The Spider-Man films. It was like the one big thing that was missing was that character, and now
yeah,
he's in
and
it.
they listened to us and billions even of others.
Just a brilliant moment.
Yeah, brilliant, fantastic, 10 out of 10.
Unfortunately, though, unless you can correct me on this, I believe there was no Stan Lee cameo in this film.
No, it wasn't.
So
Which
yeah,
is
Endgame was his last.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was a fitting one because it showed him in the 70s as he was like back in the early days.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's sad to think that this is it. Like, Stan Lee's not going to be in these films anymore.
Nah.
I feel like his likeness is in these especially Spider-Man. It's in these characters. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like these are the characters that he and I think it's Jack Kirby created together. So it's for me. I don't know. Whenever I just go and see these films, I'm like, this is Stan Lee's work. You know, the characters, the ideas of these characters.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I was quite sad about that. No Stan Lee.
Yeah.
In terms of the plot, would you say this was more character driven, or would you say that
I would say
was...
so. I
Yeah.
would say it's. I think it's a bit of both. There's a character driven plot, but also there is the elementals and Mysterio's illusions.
Mm.
So it's a mix of both, with I think the character driven stuff not fully being realized as much as it could have been.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I would say that that would be the sort of the sum up of the plot. Like, what is the actual plot? It's like it's a mix of both.
Yeah, it's odd actually. It's odd to describe, but I feel like when you think about the plot, it just all revolves around Mysterio, really.
Yeah.
Whereas everything else in this film felt like it wasn't written as part of the plot. It was just a teenage comedy film.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this film was written by Chris McKenna and Eric Summers, which I think is interesting because Homecoming had 6 writers, whereas this one only had 2.
I feel like that did, in a sense, I think that did benefit it a bit.
I think it did mainly because it does feel a bit more focused.
Yeah. It just doesn't go as far as with things as I wish they did. That's really what I have the problem with.
Yeah. In terms of dialogue, would you say it was like how would you rate the dialogue of this film, like the screenplay?
There's some scenes with dialogue that are great, and there's some others that are pretty bad. So it's a very mixed bag.
Right.
I would say it's leaned to more positive. I would say.
Yeah, I'd agree with Callum.
Yeah. It was entertaining, but at points not particularly purposeful.
No, yeah.
But the direction by John Watts, I think this film looks amazing, especially the Mysterio scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It does not. It is definitely way more exciting than it was in Homecoming, which was quite bland.
Yes.
There's actually like good shots. There is great effects, I think, with the illusions. I think as well. So it's a massive improvement on Homecoming in that front.
Yeah. I really like one of the most like sort of, I suppose, intentionally uncomfortable bits is like when he's having the illusion and Iron Man's corpse comes up with the suit on.
That was very unnerving. Yeah, it was very good.
Yeah, I thought this film looked great. And it's interesting though, because it's like, yeah, it's actually predominantly special effects when you think about it. Like a lot of the major stuff in this film is predominantly special effects, but it all looks real, which I think is really like, it's interesting because the visuals aren't realistic, but the way that they are put together as effects look like that he is experiencing it as a real thing.
Well, I think that's the whole idea behind Mysterio, is like, this shit is impossibly just unrealistic, but it looks so real, and you're like, whoa, shit, this is happening when it's not.
That's a great, like, sort of like way
thematic.
around it is like,
yeah.
The great way around it is that because he's like a simulation person, like he knows how to do it. It's like they are effects in the sense. So it's quite in a sense, sort of a meta way to think about it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Because we look at them and it's like, oh, those effects look good. The film guys did really well, but the canon story, those are literal effects.
Yeah,
so it's quite an interesting. It's an interesting concept as well. So
diegetic CGI, something I don't think I've ever seen before in like a live action film.
No,
because I think obviously like you get it a lot in other things. Like one big example that comes to mind, like when I saw that, is Yu-Gi-Oh, because Yu-Gi-Oh has holograms of the jewels.
Yeah,
and they're not real, but they are there to show what's going on, and it feels real, mainly because it's a cartoon. But it's that same kind of technology where the CGI is actually part of the story.
Yeah.
But yeah, overall the film looked great. Now the score by Michael Giacchino. So he did the score for the first one, I believe, as well.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
And did he do any others?
Not that I can recall.
No, he's only done the Spider-Man MCU films.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. What did you think of the score?
I liked it. I thought it was really good. I think Mysterio's theme is great.
Yeah. It was I liked when it was incidental. It was really good. But I still don't think that they've ever quite gotten to that level of like the Danny Elfman scores.
No,
or even
not quite. No.
Or even Christopher Young's in Spider-Man 3, because I think that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. I wouldn't say it's iconic, but it works within the context of the film.
Like Spider-Man's theme is like, it's not my favorite like take on a set piece music for Spider-Man, but it's still very good, and I think that it's a lot more mature and it's a lot more slower in this film than it was in Homecoming. So I do like that, the way it's sort of scored.
But I just wish it actually reflected what the film was doing. Because if the film was actually maturing Peter Parker, then it would make sense.
Yeah, but it does. Yeah, but it still feels like he's growing up and doesn't feel like he's there yet, which is a shame.
Yeah.
But Mysterio's theme, I think, is probably my favorite piece of music in the film.
Yeah.
The way you have his hero theme, but then it turns into his bad guy theme is very
Mhm.
nicely done.
Yes. I don't have much more to say about it, actually.
It's a good
I
score, but the memorable parts are Spider-Man's theme and Mysterio's theme, I would say,
I like I
and
liked the
maybe the illusion parts as well.
I liked the difference between like the Homecoming theme and this one. So because like the Homecoming theme,
Yeah,
they're the same tune, but the
yeah,
Homecoming one to my memory is mostly string, where this one is
yeah.
more like you said, Callum, it's more kind of slowed down and it's a lot
Mature.
what do they
That's what I
call it?
said.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's more mature and it's kind of a deeper, slower,
yeah.
he's rising
It's a
to
lot more epic, and it's
yeah,
like at the end of the film, he's rising to the occasion,
yeah,
which I feel like
absolutely.
I wish the film within the plot did. Then it would be
Yeah,
like, oh, it fits so perfectly within the music
yeah,
and the plot. But it's
yeah,
still a really good score. It's
yeah.
just that with the story didn't really go in that direction.
No.
Yeah. Are we ready to move on to the trivia?
Let's
Yeah.
do it.
There's not that much, obviously, because it's a new film, but there is
Shit.
enough for it to be plentiful.
Enough.
Uh, yeah. So Peter Suitcase had the letters BFP on it. This refers to Benjamin Franklin Parker, Peter
Yep.
Parker's uncle Ben, whose death motivated him to become Spider-Man, which we
Man, it's a
said,
shame he lost it though,
yeah,
and they don't care about it.
exactly. No
Maybe that's
significance.
the plot point for number 3. It's like, oh, somebody found the suit. He's made of sand, by the way.
Oh dear. As is common with MCU films, a clip prominently shown in multiple trailers is entirely absent from the finished movie. In this case, a scene showing Spider-Man defeating a gang of... Hold on, I just
Yeah,
lost it. A
it
gang
was.
of bad guys in a restaurant
Yeah,
Yeah.
before departing on a school trip to Europe was not shown in the final version.
that would have been great to like break up the scenes, so
Well,
it wouldn't feel like
it was mentioned by Aunt May.
Yeah.
It's weird. She mentioned it, but it didn't happen in the film.
There was also clips of him going to that deli dude and buying like a toothbrush and shit,
yeah,
which
from
was in one of the
Homecoming.
trailers. Yeah, and like that wasn't in the film either.
Apparently, they're making it into a short film for the Blu-ray. Is what
Yeah,
I've heard. I don't know if that's true, but
I've heard the
it feels
same.
like
Yeah,
that's so weird because those are scenes that could have benefited this film so much.
absolutely. Yeah,
Like those scenes with like jokes that go on too long could have been cut down for those.
Yeah, like
yeah,
Because
for
if you
sure.
had
camera dropping
if you
scene.
had that, yeah, if you had that fight scene after the like, for example, when you get that shot of Peter looking at the Iron Man artwork,
Yeah,
if he heard that there was something going on in the restaurant and he saw that and that scene happened, that would have been great. That would have been such a
yeah,
good transition, like a
Well,
great
because
way
then
to
it's
break
like
up the pace of the film.
he doesn't have time to be like sad about it, and then later on when he completely
Yeah.
breaks down, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
In the film, Spider-Man mentions Captain Marvel, which marks the first time an MCU character referred to Carol Danvers by that name.
We'll pass on
Sorry
that
to
one.
interrupt you with that. Tom Holland wanted Jason Momoa as Kraven the Hunter in the film.
Wait for number 3, please.
But he's Aquaman.
Yeah. Well, we've had
let's
Willem
see.
Dafoe. Willem Dafoe was in Aquaman, so
Yeah, and J.K. Simmons was in Far From Home.
Yep. Maybe that's the trade they made.
Suck it, DC.
Yeah. United Airlines has a safety video tie-in with Spider-Man that features Ned, along with a tribute to Stan Lee.
oh,
That's nice.
It is.
Peter's passport lists August 10th is his birthday. Spider-Man's first appearance was in Amazing Fantasy number 15, released on August 10th, 1962. In real life, Tom Holland's birthday is June 1st.
Yeah, John Watts loves those little Easter egg, like number Easter eggs and date Easter eggs.
Yeah. The license plate. Oh, and also, I was just going to randomly mention this when I read that. It's completely irrelevant. But one of the things that's really sad about the Harry Potter films, like in terms of just for his character, is the fact that his birthday always comes on the times that he's with the Dursleys. So he always has a shit birthday.
Oh yeah.
Because it's always during the holidays.
Like his birthday is like just before school starts,
Exactly.
which is quite odd. Yeah.
But it's kind of sad the fact that he always has his birthday and it's always shit because of the Dursleys.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Probably except for Goblet though, because he's with the Weasleys.
well, in the book,
Yeah.
he's with the Dursleys,
Ah, okay.
but they cut that out.
They're all gay in the book.
The license plate on the car driven by Fury and Maria Hill is MTU 83779, which references Marvel Team Up issue 83 from July 1979 called Spider-Man and Nick Fury.
Yeah, again, John Watts loves those little number Easter eggs. Number and date. And like issue,
Yeah. According to storyboard artist Jeffrey Henderson, Mysterio was supposed to be one of the villains in Sam Raimi's cancelled Spider-Man 4.
Mm-hmm.
He was played by cult icon Bruce Campbell. He was going to be played by a childhood friend and longtime collaborator of Raimi's, who made cameos in all 3 Spider-Man films. The oversized check Happy presents early in the film says Synchrony on it. Synchrony Bank is the company who distributes the Marvel credit card. Oh, this is Samuel L. Jackson's 3rd consecutive MCU appearance as Nick Fury, following Captain Marvel, Endgame, and Endgame. This is also the first time an MCU character has appeared in 3 films in 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
He did a lot. He must have filmed quite a lot in 2018.
Yeah. That's a lot for an old man.
And because press for Captain Marvel would have been early. No, that would have been early last year, right?
No, because
Or was it this year?
Marvel came out this year. Captain Marvel came out.
Oh right,
March.
I can't remember.
So the build up to it would have started after New Year's. I'd assume.
Yeah.
It came 1 month before Endgame.
Yeah. I don't know.
Which is
I don't remember it at all.
It was a weird choice.
I don't remember watching it at all.
Trust me, you're better off that way.
Yeah, I know.
Originally, Jake Gyllenhaal was going to replace Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man 2. After Maguire got injured during the filming of Seabiscuit, but luckily his injuries healed up and he came back on set. It was reported that Matt Damon turned down the villain role.
Mm-hmm.
But wouldn't that be a plot hole because he was already in Ragnarok?
It would have been odd. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless he's another trickster or something like that. Or, well, no, it would have still been an illusion, but I would have said, because Mysterio is from another universe. So maybe that character is Mysterio, so that'd be funny, but they didn't go with that.
I think there's. I'm pretty sure now, Nick Fury and Happy Hogan have had the most appearances in the MCU in terms of films.
Yeah. Oh, well, they've both lasted since Iron Man and haven't died yet, so yeah, it would make sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, they
And
both
have
got
been in
snapped, but
yeah. And Nick
Yeah.
Fury's been in almost every single like Marvel characters film, apart from probably like Incredible Hulk and Thor. Like, because
all
he's
the
in Winter
Earth-based ones.
Soldier. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's in all the Earth-based ones. Yeah,
He's in like all the Well, he's in Winter. Yeah, he's like you said, he's in Winter Soldier. He's in all the Iron Man films, isn't he?
yeah. He's not in 3.
Not in 3. He's
Oh.
not in Black Panther either.
No.
Right,
But
but
he's not
Happy Hogan's in Iron Man 1, 2, 3, and he's in Spider-Man: Homecoming and Endgame and Far From Home.
Far From Home. And originally was meant to be in Infinity War.
Yeah. Does he appear in Age of Ultron?
No.
Not that I know of, no.
Right. Yeah, it was weird. There was like a period where like Happy Hogan and Pepper Potts disappeared for like ages, from
Yeah.
like Iron Man 3 to Spider-Man.
Yeah, they didn't appear because Gwyneth Paltrow's like contract was up, and while she wasn't in Civil War from like Iron Man 3 all the way to Homecoming, it's a big
Yeah.
gap.
Yeah, but I'm glad that they got her back for Endgame, especially.
Yeah, because it meant so much for Tony's character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, my phone keeps going to the lock screen if I just leave it, so I'm gonna have to like. It was heavily rumored that Doctor Strange would make an appearance, but was shut down by producer Kevin Feige. Apparently, he is briefly mentioned.
That would have been really... The Spider-Man Doctor Strange comics are really, really cool.
And they
And
really
obviously
they're
related
really
to
good,
Mysterio as well.
and they were great in Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, well. I believe in Feige for now.
Yeah, right. So Tom Holland, was this the film that he spoiled like the name of?
I think so.
Yeah, you're right. It
Okay.
was.
I remember
that.
he spoiled that
Yeah.
there were like sequels as well, like when he shouldn't have.
Yeah, he said, "Oh, they've got me for like 2 more," and then after he went, "Oh shit, I shouldn't have said that. Fuck."
Yeah, because Infinity War.
Yeah,
Like as much as I love Infinity War and Endgame, like they're probably two of my favorite films I've ever seen. The whole like marketing around all the superheroes dying was such a massive disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
They completely fucked it.
I thought it was interesting in terms of characters like Gamora and Vision, because obviously they didn't come back, but a lot of people were speculating they're like, "Oh,
And
they'll
also
come back."
Black Widow in Endgame as well.
Yeah, but like in Infinity War, she didn't. Like before Infinity War, people were like, "No, she won't die," and then after she didn't, so everyone was like, "Oh, she's fine," you know. And then after Endgame, everyone's like, "Oh, shit, that's it. Damn, all right."
Director John Watts has confirmed that Michael Keaton, Laura Harrier, and Michael Mando would not be reprising their roles from Homecoming. What was the post-credit scene in Homecoming that had Michael Keaton in it? What was that again?
It was a
Him
Scorpion
talking
in
to
jail,
Scorpion.
and Scorpion said, "Someone told me you know who Spider-Man is," and he says that person was wrong.
Was that scene just like Avi Arad doing Sinister Six stuff?
Yes, it was.
Fuck's sake.
Yes, it was.
Ah, dear.
Yeah.
At least he's not getting rushed though.
I've got a itchy feeling about the third MCU Spider-Man film, but I'll just save it because it could go really, really well, or it could turn into a pile of poo-poo.
When Mysterio and Peter Parker are having a drink, the song playing in the background is called "A Town Called Malice" by The Jam. This song also in Billy Elliot, a musical that Tom Holland made his debut as the title character in 2008.
I thought it was gonna be like this song lyrics say like this guy is bad and he's gonna fuck you over.
That would be not subtle at all.
Yeah, I know. I thought that was the trivia, and I was like, damn, fucking people should listen.
Also, is the next Spider-Man film also going to have home in the title?
Unknown. We don't know anything about Phase 4 for now. Like, legitimately.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's all rumors?
Yep, so far, yes.
Right. Well, with that being said, Anthony, give your conclusion and rating out of 10 for Far From Home.
So, went and saw it, didn't really expect too much, didn't really get too much. I was pretty pleased with the most part of it. And then the post-credit scene hit. I went, holy fuck, did my victory lap. Great time. The first third of this film, very poor, very boring. Don't get me wrong, it's got cutesy shit, high school teenage crap. That's fine. But this is a Spider-Man film. It's not a high school drama. I'm gonna give it. No, not yet. It's better than Spider-Man 3. It's better, far better than Amazing Spider-Man 2, and far better than Amazing Spider-Man 1. I think this film. Actually, remind me what I gave Spider-Man 1 again.
You gave Spider-Man 1 an 8.5.
Excellent. I think this film. I will give this film an exact rating of 8.5 as well. It would, and to be clear, it would be getting a 7.5. It gets a full 1 point just for that post-credit scene.
There you go. Callum, your turn.
I think Spider-Man Far From Home does have problems. I think it should have developed Peter as a character further than what it did. It had so much potential to do that. But saying that, I think this film is very entertaining. Mysterio is a great villain. Tom Holland does a fantastic job. Action set pieces are great. The post-credit scene is one of the best in, I think, Marvel history. And I think this film is actually really, really fun and entertaining and a good follow-up for Endgame. Just wishing it could have gone a bit further with its characters. And I think I just have problems with the MCU Spider-Man as a whole, more so with criticism than Far From Home. So I am going to give Far From Home an 8 out of 10.
Right. So you both put it on par with Spider-Man 1.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep, and I stand by that. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I think that Spider-Man Far From Home is a very entertaining, fun film. It's one of the films from the MCU that I've watched from start to finish, and I enjoyed most of it, like in terms of just entertainment, surface level entertainment. Unfortunately, there are some issues with it as a Spider-Man film that I noticed upon further thinking about it. But that being said, the Mysterio as a villain was fantastic, and obviously the post-credit scene was an absolute delight. But I just don't think that this film captures the same magic as the first two Raimi films. So, but I do think it's slightly better than Homecoming. So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Well-rounded. Pretty similar scores we've all given it.
Yeah. So, now that we're at the end of our Spider-Man marathon, I suppose Spider-Man and Venom as well,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's time for us to rank those films.
Yep.
Shit, here we go.
Who wants to go first?
Anthony, you can go first because I'm just sorting out the list.
Okay, crap. I gotta sort
Yes,
out my list too.
Oh.
Okay, I've got my list, so
You
I
got
can do it
yours?
now if you want.
Okay,
Oh, please go
let's
ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So, let's see. Okay, so we reviewed 9 films. I'm not counting Civil War, Infinity War, or Endgame. I feel like that's unfair. But in as honorable mentions, I think they're all brilliant films. 3 of my favorite MCU films, and I'm so glad that Spider-Man was in them. But with that being said, number 9 The Amazing Spider-Man 2, fucking atrocious. The worst thing I've reviewed on this whole channel. 1.5
Really
out of
worse
10.
than like anything from anywhere else.
Yeah, there's
Jesus.
Captain Marvel was 2 out of 10, and Warriors of the Deep was 2 out of 10,
Fucking hell.
the Doctor Who episode. This
Yeah.
is worse than both of those.
Christ.
Fucking
That's horrible.
appalling. 1.5 out of 10. Number 8, The Amazing Spider-Man. It's just not what I look for in a Spider-Man film. Gwen Stacy is good. I like some of the ideas in it, and there is, I feel like, a good story somewhere in there, but it's just so studio-bound, bland. The suit's fucking disgusting, and the characterization of Peter Parker was a disgrace. 4 out of 10. Then it's number 7. I've got Venom. Venom is an awkward film because I think it's got a great main character, but the rest of it is quite forgettable. The pacing's off, and it is just overall quite a strange one. 5.5 out of 10. Then at 6, I've got Spider-Man 3. This is an infamous film because it's so... a lot of people say it's a disappointment for the Raimi trilogy. And whilst I agree it's got a multitude of problems, and we went into it into the review, we had a proper rant about it, about how many disappointing things come from that film, I still think it's a very entertaining film, and there are positives in there that are as good as the other Raimi films. Especially, for example, things like J. Jonah Jameson and Aunt May. And there is potential in that film for a great one, but unfortunately it just didn't work that well. 6 out of 10. Then at number 5, I've got Spider-Man Homecoming. The first time I watched it, I really enjoyed it, but the second time I noticed that it has flaws, and as a Spider-Man film, it doesn't quite fulfill what I want from it. But I still like it. I still think it's really enjoyable, despite that. I just wish it was a bit more substantial. But that being said, Vulture is fucking great. Then at number 4, sorry, before I say that, Homecoming is an 8 out of 10. Then at number 4, I've got Far From Home. It's very similar to Homecoming, except I think that the direction is much better. The creativity of the story is a lot more relevant. And whilst a lot of the comedy I felt was quite pointless, it was very entertaining. But yes, this film has problems, and I don't agree with the people that say it's the best Spider-Man film. I just don't see that, but that's just my opinion. But overall, I did like it, so 8 out of 10. Then number 3, I've got Spider-Man 1, an incredibly nostalgic film. One of the first superhero films I ever saw. It has so much charm to it. It's the ideal introduction to Spider-Man. It has all the bells and whistles of the backstory, and it's just wonderful. Yes, there are flaws, and it has aged, but I still am infinitely captivated and entertained by it. 8.5 out of 10. Then number 2, I've got Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, a pleasant surprise. One of the most gorgeously animated films I've ever seen in my life. It's right up there with like the Pixar films in terms of its like visual design. The characters are fantastic. The fan service is very pleasing, and the tone is excellent. And just overall, this is an absolute delight to see Sony finally do something after all these years that is a worthy, great Spider-Man film. 9.5 out of 10. And then at the top, Spider-Man 2, the ideal Spider-Man film. The only flaw I have with it is that I think Harry Osborn's character isn't fleshed out enough, and there's like a couple of nitpicks I have here and there. And I also don't have as much nostalgia for it as I do Spider-Man 1, but it is better. Near perfect, 9.5 out of 10.
All right.
Right, who wants to go next?
So you can go first.
So, you actually, Connor, your list was pretty similar to mine, with one differentiation, which was the swapping of Far From Home and the original Spider-Man.
Right.
And also, the ones I've got here might not link up with the ratings I've given them. That's because I'm comparing them all against each other. So I please understand the great Nintendo president. I don't know his name directly, but his words. Please understand. Um, I don't have a great memory, so a lot of these ratings are probably fucked and jumbled. But again, my worst was Amazing Spider-Man 2. Disgusting. I get maybe 10 minutes in and I'm like, turn it off, please. It's horrible. Above that is Amazing Spider-Man 1. The suit, those eyes, those horrible yellow eyes. Above that is Venom. It's okay. Pacing's shit though, and the suit isn't what I like. Above that is Spider-Man 3. Just you know my qualms with this movie. That fucking you got a million villains and Venom money, shove him in. Fucking fuck off, Avirad, you suck big penis.
That
After
has to
that
be
is
the film
Homecoming.
that he did the most damage with, honestly.
Yeah,
Spider-Man
for
3.
sure. Well, there was a lot of potential there, with riding the back of Spider-Man 2, and then it's like, hey, we have Avirad's fucking fan wank. Only he likes it. Anyways, above that is Homecoming. It's pretty good in terms of introducing this new Spider-Man that we saw a little bit in Civil War. The villain's great, and a lot of these movies very much rely on the villain to kind of not carry, but it's entertaining if the villain is also as good as the main character. Coming off of that, in front of Homecoming is Spider-Man 2002 with Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin. For me, that movie, there are instances where it hasn't aged very well at all. Most namely the parade scene. It's just very cheesy and corny. And I did say I liked that cheesy and corniness, but some of it is like it's too outdated for me. I don't know. Anyways, above that is Far From Home. That's riding on the villain Mysterio. Very well done, very well acted. I also one thing I didn't mention earlier on in this review, the suit from in Far From Home, right? The one that he builds. I like that a lot. It's grown on me. I really like that suit. Above that is Into the Spider-Verse. This was before this one came out. I knew it was going to be good, and it came out, and I was like, "Yep, that's really good. It's 10 out of 10." Also, one of my favorite comic book characters, Miles Morales. I like the suit. Very cool black and red suit. And at the top, what did you expect? It's Spider-Man 2 still holds the title for best Spider-Man film. The score, the themes, even the villain, just great. Everything about Spider-Man 2. It's still like we said, the only thing that's possibly dated poorly was that bank scene, and that's like one small little scene in a 2-hour movie. So it just goes to show how some movies can date very poorly, Spider-Man 3, and some just have like very small, not even dating that horribly. So yeah, that's my rating of them all.
Nice. All right, Callum.
Right. At the bottom, no surprise, Amazing Spider-Man 2. Peter Crap does so much damage to the character, direction, music, effect, characters, villains. It's all horrible. It's the worst Spider-Man film by far. Anybody who says it isn't, or anybody who thinks this film is even good, I can't fathom that. It can't process in my head. Next is Amazing Spider-Man. It's a poor remake, a poor reboot. While there are decent aspects to it, like Gwen Stacy, it still fails at a lot of stuff, even for being a reboot. Like, first outing for a new version of Spider-Man, it's very poor. Next is Venom. While the main character is great, everything else is trash. Pacing is the worst I've ever seen in any film. It is horrible. It is horrible. Just nothing redeeming about it apart from Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock and Venom. Next is Spider-Man 3. I actually really do like Spider-Man 3 to an extent. I actually think Spider-Man 3 has the best ending out of the three. I think from Sandman to the end credits is actually a really, really wholesome ending. I think even with the poor like decisions it's made, the themes are still there and it still makes sense. So I think Spider-Man 3 has actually a few things I really, really like. But yeah, it's a massive mess of a story as well. Next, I've got Homecoming. Second viewing, I really, really was disappointed by it. Before it'd be up there, either third or second as my favorite Spider-Man films, but after a rewatch, I've come to realize that I have problems with this version of Spider-Man. And then next is Far From Home, and sort of like my criticisms are the same as like Homecoming in terms of the characters, especially stuff like Aunt May and stuff like that. But Far From Home is a much better film than Homecoming, more focused, and it has a driven character plot and a very cool villain and a very nice story and a meaningful ending with a post-credit scene as well. Next, I've got Spider-Man, the original from Sam Raimi. Great. It's a great origin story and a great introduction to the big screen in film for a character. Couldn't think of a better way to do it. Then up next, in second place, I've got Into the Spider-Verse. Definitely the best experience I've had of a Spider-Man film in theaters. Not in theaters, sorry, of like watching it for the first time. It is a great ride, a great animated film. It's creative, it's meaningful, and it's a great way to introduce a brand new character that many people don't know about as well. It's a brilliant film from start to finish. And then at the top, it's Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 is the best Spider-Man film, bar none. The best Peter Parker film, bar none. It is what every Spider-Man film should aim to be in terms of quality. It does everything right, from the direction, the characters, the writing, the villains, the story. Everything is done so right, so meaningful for the character. It understands what the character is, understand what it is meant for, what his motivations are, what kind of person he is. And Sam Raimi understood that tenfold. Did a fantastic job, and it is absolutely, without a doubt, the best Spider-Man film I have seen and probably will see.
There you go. Did we have exactly the same list, Callum?
Yep.
Oh, there you go then. Yeah, so that's the ranking of the Spider-Man films. Now, in terms of where it ranks, in terms of like, because obviously at the end of Endgame, me, Callum, and Adam did, sorry, our rankings of the Phase 3 films. So I assume, based on what we've said, that for you, Callum, it's above Homecoming but below Black Panther. Is that correct?
I've actually got Far From Home above Black Panther. Because
Right,
both of them, I have them at an 8, but because I prefer Spider-Man as a character, that's why it slightly nudges it above.
Okay, so you got it above Black Panther and below Ragnarok.
Yeah, below Ragnarok.
Right. Okay.
Ooh.
So for me, it's above Homecoming, and it's below. What's the next one up? I think it's Civil War. Yeah, pretty sure Civil War's the next one up for me. So yeah, it's just slightly.
I know because you have Ragnarok and Volume 2 of Guardians quite low,
and Black Panther below Homecoming. So I think it's just slightly above Homecoming, but there's quite a big gap between Far From Home and Civil War. Because I gave Far From Home a 8, I guess Civil War a 9.5. There is a big gap. Anthony, seeing as you were on the Endgame review, why don't you give me to rank all the Phase 3 films from worst to best?
Jesus Christ. Okay. Oh no, this will be pretty simple, I believe. So bottom of the bin, you're gonna be Captain Marvel. As stated previously on this review, I can't even remember what the fuck happens. I don't wish to care about what happens. I don't think it has anything that's like, oh, it means something. No, it doesn't. No, they got shit that's already been introduced to, like, hey, let's shove it in here and make it important. So no, Captain Marvel is bottom of the barrel. because yuck, get it away from me. After that, unfortunately, is Ant-Man and the Wasp. Shit, what have I done? I like, because this followed up Infinity War, and Infinity War was a very big kind of like, oh fuck, that's what, okay, shit, you know what I mean? And then Ant-Man and the Wasp's like, hey, let's go back 6 months, and everything's still fine, and it's Paul Rudd doing funny stuff. Um, so I liked it as the comedy it was, but as the superhero movie it was, I was just like, I want to get to the Infinity War. What happened? You know what happened? Everyone knows what happens. Let's see it. After that, let's see. I'm going to put. Oh, okay. Unfortunately, I'm going to put Doctor Strange right after Ant-Man and the Wasp. So I actually really like Doctor Strange, although I feel the end was I really like the Dormammu thing. Very kind of insightful. You know, this is how he beats the final boss of the movie, whatever the bad person. Very cool, very new and different at its time. Um, but the whole thing with Mads Mikkelsen, like I can't even remember his character's name. It's just very. Oh, he's bad and he's gone. See ya. That's it. After that,
Is it Caecilius? Is that the name of the
yeah,
character?
Caecilius, that's his name. Because he's a very throwaway. You know, it's like, oh yeah, Dormammu said don't do that, so see ya, bye, and he leaves, and that's it, and he's gone. Um, Let me just tick off the ones I've done. So I've got Captain Marvel, we've got Ant-Man and the Wasp, we've done Doctor Strange. After that, it's going to be Guardians 2.
Oh, it's the same as me, I think.
Yeah, well, so because Guardians 2, obviously, it's got the whole thing with the daddy issues, and I like that in films. But I feel with this film, it has the same issue that Far From Home had, where it just goes and goes and goes, and then bang, here you go. You know, you've got to wait for it to kind of get into it. Again, the ending to that movie, really, really good. I like the ending. Very sad, made me cry. So there you go. After that, I'm going to put Homecoming. Um, Michael Keaton as Vulture, great choice of villain, and how they portrayed him, very nice. That kind of imagery of he's the scavenger who collects the old Avengers shit. Oh, he's also the Vulture, who a vulture is a scavenging bird. After that, it's going to be Far From Home. We've just gone. Have you been listening to the video? We've just gone through that. After Far From Home, what's left? Okay,
Ragnarok.
cool. Yeah. Yeah. So that actually is the next one. Actually, no. Sorry, I'm gonna go Homecoming and then Ragnarok.
I thought so.
Ragnarok has parts of it that I really enjoy. Again, though, they're kind of all at the end. With the battle with Thor and Hela, and she takes out his eye, and then he sees his father, and it's "What are you, Thor, God of Hammers?" I like that scene. Anything Anthony Hopkins is in, I like that a lot. Unfortunately, he has 2 scenes, and then he's gone. So yeah, after Ragnarok is Far From Home. We've just been through why. After that, what's next is Captain America: Civil War. Very faithful characterization of Captain America. Good characterization. Actually, it's an interesting characterization of Iron Man because it's kind of he's the character in this movie who's like, we need to obey the law. Whereas Captain America, the lawful one, is like, no, let's not do that because I know this guy's innocent. I know my best friend from the war is innocent. So it's a very interesting dynamic between the two where they're almost switched. Excuse me. After that, I'm gonna do Black Panther. I fucking love this film, although it has its flaws. Namely, the third act is pretty shit. The CGI is disgusting. What did you do there? Ryan Coogler, what are you doing? No, but I really like Black Panther. I still think it's, for me, probably one of the best solo Marvel films. After that is Infinity War. just, we waited so long to see some of these characters interact with each other. We got that. We also got the ending, the snap. Holy shit. What the fuck happened? And then Endgame, which I'm going to go very briefly over why. So I made a list for Endgame. Did I have I discussed this in any other Spider-Man reviews?
You told me about this, but I don't really think you told them.
Okay, so before Endgame, I was overseas, and we caught a plane back to New Zealand. And what I did was I wrote a list on my phone of things that not necessarily I was expecting to see, but things that I was like, this would be so cool if it happened. Of the things on my list, I had 9 events, and I'm going to check if I still have this list on my phone. I had these 9 events listed out. So they were: Tony is reunited with his father, Steve is reunited with Peggy, Tony is killed, Steve is killed, Steve welds Mjolnir, snapped characters return, Thanos is killed, or Thanos is stuck in a time paradox, see Doctor Strange, and the introduction of Fantastic Four. So this was my wish list, essentially, that I'd created on the plane with 0 spoilers. That's another thing. I was absent during the Phase 3 review. That's why I'm, doing it now. I disconnected myself from any and all social media. I deleted Facebook, Instagram, Twitter off of my phone, YouTube as well. I wanted 0 spoilers. This was the movie, right? So that's what I did, and I created this list. I went into this theater and I watched, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have 9 things on here. I think of the 9, 7 of these things that I wished for actually happened. And the 2 that did not happen was that the introduction of Fantastic Four sadly did not happen. And Thanos is stuck in a time paradox, see Doctor Strange. That didn't happen. They snapped him. They killed him. Another cough break. So I was just pleasantly surprised that I had, like 98% of my wish list had came true for Endgame, the movie of spanning 11 years. It was like, fuck. They listened to the fans, really, and that's what Marvel has been all these years. It's, Phase 1 you had poo-poos like Thor, and then Phase 2 Thor: The Dark World, and it's very clear that, to Connor's dismay, Marvel went, shit, people don't like the Thor movies. How can we change it? Let's get a completely new director and make it a new tone. They listen to the fans. Oh, what's working, what's not? Let's change it to make it work, or like to try something different. And that's why I think I have a lot of respect for this franchise, is that while sticking mostly to the original formula, they're willing to listen to what the fans have to say. So yeah.
Right. Very well said. A nice little story.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Is there anything else we want to say about Far From Home before we wrap up the video?
No, that's everything.
As have I.
Okay. Well, I suppose that brings us to the end of our Spider-Man reviews until another film comes out. I think Venom 2 is the next one, sadly.
Oh, Christ.
But do not hesitate, that is not for a long time. The next week we are going to be reviewing X2 X-Men United as we continue our X-Men review series. So we will see you all then. I'm just going to turn it on.